Chapter 494. In the middle of the night, a few monsters were shuttling through the corners of the city. They were ordered to catch a young monster named Xuefeng alive. To deal with a young monster, they could just use an adult monster. But the number of adult monsters that were dispatched was far more than these few. In the city, there were also several small teams that were working. This little guy runs pretty fast, but it's a pity that he's still too young. You wait in front and drive him into a dead end. Master Tortoise said that we want him alive, but he didn't say that we can't hurt him. The meaning was clear. It didn't matter if they used violence when necessary, but they really didn't want to kill him. But for Xuefeng, who was being chased, he didn't feel this. He just felt scared now. Those who were chasing him were not enemies of his age or younger. It was not something that could be solved by a street fight. But to this day, he still didn't understand why he had suddenly become a wanted man. Xuefeng thought of many possibilities. Logically speaking, he didn't do anything bad. The only thing he could think of was the incident with Xiao Jiang. But he wasn't sure. Although Xiao Jiang's family had lived for a long time and knew many monsters, he shouldn't be able to mobilize these guys. Don't run, little guy. Surrender and come back with me to see Master Tortoise. A black shadow suddenly appeared in front, blocking Windchasing Wolf's path. He immediately turned around, but found that the road behind him was also blocked. He raised his head and saw a black shadow moving under the eaves. There was no way to escape. Master Tortoise. Is it Master Chichikamaya? Xuefeng frowned. He was scared, but not to the extent that he couldn't think. He asked directly without stopping, "Why does that master want to see me?" "You don't have to care about that. Anyway, we were told to take you to him. So you better not run. You're still young, and we don't want to do anything to you. Who knows what will happen if I follow you?" Xuefeng was angry and gritted his teeth. "If you don't make it clear, I won't submit to you." Naturally violent. The black shadow in front of him shook his head. "If you don't know how to judge the situation, you won't be able to achieve great things. If we really wanted to hurt you, there would be plenty of opportunities along the way. Don't you know that? Just do it. Don't waste your breath on him." 3 black shadows flew towards Xuefeng at the same time. Facing the siege of 3 adult demons, Xuefeng was unable to hold on for more than 10 seconds before he was ruthlessly pressed to the ground. "Let me go. Let go of me. I'll kill you." He struggled madly on the ground, but what greeted him was a fist that made him see stars. Then, his consciousness went blank and he fainted. "Isn't that a little too harsh?" An adult Yao frowned and said. "He's too noisy. That fellow is simply too wild, and his eyes are filled with violence and hatred." Shaking his head, the monster continued, "Tell Lord Tortoise that we have successfully captured the target. We'll be heading back right away." Xuefeng was awakened by some slight vibrations. Of course, the moment he woke up, he could also hear some banging sounds, like the sound of subwoofers. In front of him was a huge and empty stone room. On his left and right, there were 3 demons in total standing in 2 rows. These demons were not only adults, but each of them was emitting a powerful demon energy fluctuation that scared Xuefeng. However, there was an old guy sitting in front of him with a crutch in his hand. It was Chichikamaya. Beside Chichikamaya stood the expressionless ghost baby. Xuefeng wanted to get up, but found that his hands were shackled behind his back. And his feet were also shackled. "What is this? Why did you bring me here?" Facing Xuefeng's roar when he woke up, Chichikamaya waved his hand and ordered the demons to leave, leaving only Ghost Baby. Chichikamaya said indifferently, "Xuefeng, this is the name you changed yourself, right? Your origin is unknown. I heard that you were abandoned when you were young? You are Chichikamaya? That old tortoise from the Pure Lands? As expected, you're naughty and mischievous." Chichikamaya said indifferently, "With your character, I'm afraid you won't be able to survive in the era when the demon race is still flourishing. Don't you know your situation?" It's just a life anyway. Juefeng snorted. Kill me if you can. I'll be a hero again after 18 years. Kamaya's eyes suddenly narrowed, and Juefeng felt as though the eyes of this senile old demon had been magnified countless times, dragging him into a dark abyss, causing him to tremble all over. Arrogant brat. Easy for you to say. Didn't anyone tell you that the underworld is no longer open? If you die, where will you reincarnate? Once you die, you'll become a wandering ghost, wandering between heaven and earth, and eventually obliterating, leaving no trace behind. Juefeng's mind was roaring loudly, and his head felt like it was going to split open. He screamed and knelt down immediately and then collapsed powerlessly. You don't even know how to cherish your own life. Foolish, foolish. Kamaya retracted his gaze. But don't worry, I didn't intend to kill you. I was only ordered by Lord Long to capture you. Long Shiro. Juefeng, who was lying on the ground, raised his head and gritted his teeth. It's her. He wasn't just surprised, but also understood the gist of it from Kamaya's words. It wasn't hard for him to imagine that Cheese would take Xiao Jiang to Long Shiro for help at the first moment, and it wasn't hard for him to imagine that Cheese would say that he was the murderer under the questioning of the Lord. So it's like this. It's really like this. Juefeng suddenly pressed his head against the cold floor. I'd rather believe that monster. He was laughing, but it was inexplicable. Kamaya and Ghost Child looked at each other, thinking that he might have been shocked silly. However, Juefeng suddenly raised his head and asked, Lord Turtle, you're a senior of the monster race, and you're highly respected. There's something I don't understand, can you answer me? I'm not obliged to answer your question, Kamaya said indifferently. Juefeng asked, if the whole world doesn't believe you, and even wants to deal with you, and you're innocent, how will you treat the whole world? Kamaya frowned. Since you're innocent, you'll have to prove your innocence. You can try to prove it or you can wait. How do you want to treat the whole world? Moreover, why can't the whole world believe you? Isn't it your problem? Juefeng gritted his teeth and stood up. His eyes were red. I only ask you, how will you treat the whole world? Kamaya frowned and Ghost Child stepped forward. Lord Ghost, this guy is going crazy. I knew it when he opened his eyes. I don't know why this guy has such a strong evil spirit in his heart. Kamaya shook his head. I don't know what he's been through. Ghost Child, knock him out and send him to Lord Long. She didn't want him to go crazy. Sigh, why are young guys so extreme? Ghost Child never took pity on worldly things. He simply walked over and patted on Juefeng's forehead. This strength was enough to make him lose consciousness. Ghost Child simply carried Juefeng directly on his shoulder, and left in front of Kamaya without looking back. He only said, I'll be back soon. Carrying Juefeng out of the abandoned industrial park where the Elysium Bar was located, Ghost Child looked up at the night sky. It's a full moon. I have to come back quickly. This was because for many demons, a full moon was a time when it was difficult to arouse their hidden wildness. Especially some monsters in the bar who were stimulated by alcohol, they would usually make trouble. But Sun Shaoxing liked to make trouble. He said he wanted to use it to decorate the rotten monsters. Therefore, Ghost Child usually had to be busy for a night in a month. Ghost Child glanced at Juefeng on his shoulder indifferently. No wonder he went crazy just now. He probably borrowed the characteristics of the full moon night. Moreover, the wolf monster was more sensitive to the full moon than the strange monsters. But at this time, Juefeng's body suddenly moved on Ghost Child's shoulder. Ghost Child was stunned. He didn't feel that he didn't do it at the right time. Instead, he was surprised that this little guy could wake up so quickly. Ghost Child threw Juefeng down. The first thing this guy planned to do when he woke up was to bite his neck. After landing, Juefeng's whole body lay on the ground. He looked like a vicious dog that was about to pounce. His eyes were blood red, and a lot of saliva began to spread on his sharp teeth. You completely went crazy? That's fast. Ghost Child stretched out his hand indifferently, and a knife slowly shot out from his palm. If you were unconscious before going to Lord Long's place, you may suffer less. You haven't answered my question yet. Zhui Feng, who was in a crazy state, actually made a crazy sound at this time. You can still think? Ghost Child frowned. But at this time, a bloody light came out from Zhui Feng's body. The bloody light wrapped him up, and finally turned into a bloody wolf shadow that was several times bigger than him. What are you? Since you don't answer, go to hell. Zhui Feng instantly rushed out. Ghost Child snorted, and the knife in his hand suddenly emitted a cold light. Instead of retreating, he took a step forward and chopped at the bloody wolf shadow on Zhui Feng's body. As the cold light flashed, the bloody wolf shadow was cut open. Zhui Feng screamed, and a wound appeared on his arm. Blood spurted out, but it was more serious than before. Stop, you're no match for me. Ghost Child said indifferently, I don't know where you got this power, but it obviously doesn't belong to you. You all want to fight me. All of you want to fight me. Zhui Feng suddenly opened his arms, and his waist crazily stretched, and actually let out a loud roar. The sound was so loud that Ghost Child felt like he was at the vent of a huge canyon. Light that was visible to the naked eye began to crazily rush toward Zhui Feng's body. That was the moonlight, the purest power of the full moon. Seeing Zhui Feng's body suddenly expand, Ghost Child frowned, and a purple light flashed in his eyes. The knife in his hand split into two, and turned into two cold lights. Killing an opponent was easy for Ghost Child. But not killing an opponent was the most difficult thing for him. Azura, once he attacked, there was no turning back. You've fallen into the devil's trap, and you'll die even if I don't kill you. Ghost Child snorted coldly, whether you live or die depends on your luck. The two cold lights were as fast as lightning. Ghost Child's body split into two, and floated behind Zhui Feng. The two cold lights, one above and one below, were about to slash at Zhui Feng, but Zhui Feng was still crazily absorbing the power of the moonlight. The cold lights finally intersected. But Ghost Child narrowed his eyes. He disappeared. Windchaser, who was supposed to hit him, disappeared. He didn't hide. Instead, it was as if he had disappeared from his line of sight. But Ghost Child didn't want to stay here. He kept the cold lights and quickly returned to the Pure Lands. Chichikamaya had lived for God knows how many years. Maybe he knew about the Blood Wolf Phantom. Aren't you afraid of death? In the club's lobby, the boss sitting at the bar looked at Zhui Feng and asked. There was no moonlight here, so Zhui Feng naturally couldn't absorb anything. But his eyes were still blood red, and the craziness didn't diminish, like a volcano that could erupt at any time. But Zhui Feng felt that he had to calm down. He was calmer than he was a few seconds ago. His voice was a little hoarse, but he sneered. Didn't you say that I have a life of 60 years? That I won't die before I reach 60 years old? So you were sure that I would save you, right? Luoqiu said indifferently. You're quite decisive. Zhui Feng's face was full of madness. No matter how I explained, no one believed me. That Ghost Child wanted to kill me, so I could only take a gamble. Chichikamaya, Ghost Child, and even those monsters who caught you didn't want to kill you. Luoqiu said casually. In fact, even if you didn't leave the gymnasium and talk to your friends, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Zhui Feng snorted. I don't care about that. Since they said that I was born with evil intentions, why should I listen to them? They looked at me as if I was a murderer from the beginning, so why should I explain? Luoqiu said indifferently. If it were you, wouldn't you be shocked and suspicious? Zhui Feng glared at him and roared. I don't care. How did Xiao Jiang treat me? I shouldn't have saved him. It would have been better if he had been eaten by that monster. Luoqiu looked at him as if he wanted to look into Zhui Feng's eyes. Suddenly, he said, so this is the so-called inner demon. It's quite special. This is the first time I've seen a demon driven to extremes? Zhui Feng sneered and suddenly took out the black card. Boss Luo smiled. Customer, do you need anything? Juefeng snorted. Seeing that you're talking to me, I thought you didn't want to do business with me. Boss Luo shook his head. No, this place never rejects customers, no matter how they come in. What do you want to buy? I've had enough of suspicion, indifference, hatred, mistrust, and betrayal. Juefeng's eyes turned even redder. I want everyone to obey me. Never betray me. What about the transaction fee? My soul. Boss Luo said indifferently. Sorry, customer, I'm afraid it's not enough. Juefeng's face turned fierce, but the boss suddenly waved his hand. With a tinkling sound, an ancient bell appeared in the boss's hand. But Luochu shook the bell in his hand and suddenly said, There's a product called Siren's Bell. As long as you shake it, you can make the people who hear it listen to you. But it can only work on those who are weaker than you and can only control 81 individuals. Customer, are you interested? Chapter 495. Is it really a huge shadow of a bloody wolf? Chichi Kamaya frowned. This was a specially dug space under the Elysium bar. Of course, it was not a special base, but at least it could prevent most of the uninvited monsters. That's right. Ghost Baby had already repeated the situation. Besides, I feel that although Juefeng was demonized, he was not occupied by the inner devil. It seems that his real violent nature has been revealed. Chichi Kamaya closed his eyes and thought. No one knew how old this old tortoise was. In the impression of many monsters today, it seemed that Chichi Kamaya's name could be traced back to the earliest records of their ancestors. 100 years ago, a demon wolf appeared in Kelowna. Chichi Kamaya suddenly opened his eyes. At that time, you should have been in seclusion, but I think you must have heard about it after you came out. Ghost Baby frowned and recalled. Master Tortoise, are you talking about the guy who called himself the last descendant of Xianji? Yes. Chichi Kamaya said seriously. Speaking of Xianji, I have to mention another big figure in the ancient Western mythology, Fenrir. This Xianji was one of the two sons of the giant wolf Fenrir who had swallowed and killed Odin, the king of gods. He was also known as the wolf who chased after the sun. Ghost Baby paced back and forth in front of Chichi Kamaya. I remember that after I came out of seclusion, I heard that this demon wolf first appeared in the Qinghai Tibet Plateau. As soon as it appeared, it slaughtered several powerful monsters and was in the limelight for a while. Chichi Kamaya nodded. Yes, at that time, the monsters in the plateau were in a panic, and Lord Long happened to go overseas to look for medicinal materials and had not returned. The monsters in the plateau sent messengers to Xianyuan Palace to ask for help, but when I arrived with my guards, I could not find the demon wolf. But, Master Tortoise, I don't like it when you keep people guessing. Young man, don't insult the old man. Chichi Kamaya rolled his eyes. If it were someone else, he would have hit him with his crutch. However, we found traces of a great battle. The whole snow peak collapsed, and there were huge cracks everywhere. There was no vitality in the whole battlefield. It was definitely a decisive battle between big monsters. Who did the demon wolf fight with in the snow peak? It should be. Chichi Kamaya sighed. We searched for a long time, but we couldn't find out who fought with the demon wolf. The only thing he knew was that he had never heard of this demonic wolf again after that incident. Since then, the plateau has been peaceful until now, and has just recovered a little bit of vitality. Xianji Kamaya Kamaya Kamaya. Xianji Xiao Tortoise Xianji. Is Juefeng the descendant of the demon wolf? Ghost Baby frowned. But isn't his original form an ordinary hyena? I don't understand. Chichi Kamaya suddenly stood up. I think I have to visit Lord Long in person and explain this. Ghost Baby, prepare the car for me. A black BMW 7 Series was parked in front of the pet hospital. As for the car door, there was a person wearing a leather jacket full of nails and smoky makeup. The person was a punk. The passers-by all avoided him, for fear of being blinded by the punk's aristocratic aura, because this aristocrat looked at the closed door of the pet hospital from time to time, looking very impatient. But in the office of the pet hospital, Chichikamaya almost broke his hundreds of years of mental cultivation, and his old mouth couldn't close for a long time. But he had to close it. Otherwise, who knew when this lord in front of him, with his originally bad temper, would be unable to hold back and break his tortoise shell. Although this lady didn't seem to have the ability to do that, however, the true dragon of the divine land was a creature that did not live according to logic. Who knew if she had any tricks up her sleeves? Lord Long, the most important thing now is to help you recover as soon as possible. Chichikamaya immediately said seriously. Long Shiro, who was still wearing her low dress, looked at Chichikamaya from head to toe, and suddenly said, "It's not unreasonable for you to live until now." Chichikamaya said with a righteous face, "I was born as a servant of the Xianyuan family, and I'll be a servant of the Xianyuan family even after I die. Of course, I should share the burden of Lord Long." "Okay, let's not talk about this nonsense. Help me feel my pulse first." Long Shiro pulled up her sleeves. This old turtle was the one who had enlightened her medical skills, but she had surpassed him later on. But this old turtle's medical skills were different, and he had more folk prescriptions than her, so maybe she could find a way. While feeling the pulse, Long Shiro and Chichikamaya discussed the ins and outs of Zhuifeng's case. Xianji? Long Shiro read the name carefully. How could Zhuifeng have anything to do with the descendant of Xianji? It shouldn't be. I've already checked his original body before he came here, so it's impossible. But at this moment she suddenly stopped talking. The series of blows in the past few days made her begin to doubt herself. Even if Windchaser obtained the power of Xianxi, it was not impossible. The thing in Zhuifeng's hand at that time was the most powerful proof. Until now, Long Shiro had to admit one thing. That place, that boss, had almost omnipotent power. Why would there be such an unreasonable thing in the world that went against the natural law? Lord Long? Lord Long? Chichikamaya called in a low voice. Looking at Long Shiro suddenly lost in thought, this old turtle felt that things were more serious. "Nothing, I just suddenly thought of something." Long Shiro shook her head. "What, do you see something?" Chichikamaya stroked his beard and pondered for a while, then said, "Lord Long, there's nothing wrong with your body now. Instead, you're very healthy. However, this health is only in the category of human beings." He carefully looked at Long Shiro's expression and said carefully, "I can't even detect anything like seals, poisons, or strange forces. It's really strange, really strange. Lord Long, can you tell me how you got this injury? Even you can't detect it." Long Shiro's eyes flashed with disappointment. But she didn't want other monsters to be involved with that place too much. Even she, the Kelowna Shinryu, suffered such a big loss. Other monsters, forget it, this may not be the worst situation. Long Shiro shook her head and said, "If it's the worst situation, I think I should know how to recover. On your side, remember not to disclose my current situation. Especially, don't let Sun Shaoxing know. This guy is a troublemaker." "I know, don't worry, my lord." Chichikamaya nodded. Long Shiro thought for a while and said, "Help me do a few things now." "Please tell me, my lord." Chichikamaya quickly stood up. "The opportunity to do a favor is here. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The more the better. First, about Zhuifeng's matter, you have to put your heart into it." Long Shiro said seriously, "If he becomes a demon, it is a threat to both humans and monsters. We must capture him as soon as possible. I don't want to cause panic in the human world. This world can't afford much turmoil." "I understand." "Second, there is still a patient lying in the operating room. You go and take a look. Your treatment is easier than mine. I'll go in a while." Long Shiro nodded and finally turned around. She looked at the ceiling and said, "Third, you go and bring me some clothes." "I can't go out now." Kelowna's Shinryu was taken back and sadly found that even Luo Dance's clothes were several sizes too big for her at this time. The size of the little butterfly was unexpectedly big. Why didn't he notice it before? Clothes? Chichikamaya was stunned and then suddenly understood. He quickly nodded and said, "I'll go now, my lord, please wait for a moment." Chichikamaya walked out of the side door of the pet hospital with his hands behind his back. Then Ghost Baby hurriedly came up to him. "Master Tortoise, what does Lord Long mean?" Chichikamaya suddenly raised his hand and said, "Well, I'll tell you later. Help me to buy some little girl's clothes first." Little girl's clothes? Ghost Baby gave a start but didn't ask more. He nodded and said, "What kind of clothes do you want?" Well, Chichikamaya thought for a while and then used the most fashionable mobile phone to search for some pictures, probably this type. Lolita? Okay, I see. Ghost Baby nodded. Chapter 496. I didn't expect that. Xiao Jiang is now, only Nini and Cheese were left at the place where they used to meet each other. Nini listened to Cheese's words with concern. Cheese tossed a freshly bought raw fish to Iron Whistle, shaking his head. It should be fine. Lord Long said that Xiao Jiang will come out when he can get out of bed. With Lord Long's help, he should be fine. Nini nodded with relief and then said with annoyance, "Oh, why didn't you tell me earlier? Otherwise, I would have gone to check on Lord Long when I passed by." Cheese said, "Lord Long seems to have something to do, so he doesn't want to be disturbed." "Oh," Nini said and then said, "Really? No wonder I saw a car parked in front of the hospital when I passed by, and Master Ghost Baby was leaning against it. I was so scared that I ran away." Cheese didn't mention the letter to Chichikamaya, but said, "Nini, you'd better not go out alone. Be careful, I'm a little worried." Nini smiled. "What's wrong? Are you worried that Juefeng will hurt me? Cheese, are you worried about me?" "Don't lean so close." Milk shrank his neck. "It tickles." "Don't worry, haven't you heard that cats have 9 lives? Besides," Nini still leaned forward, almost touching Cheese's shoulder. "Hey Cheese, when did you get hurt on your neck? There's a red spot here." "Here?" Cheese was stunned. Some excessively stimulating scenes flashed in his mind, and then he couldn't help but recall the pink memories that suffocated him with perfume. Cheese suddenly quivered, blushing. "Didn't I tell you not to get so close?" Okay, it's late, you should go back. I have to go back and take care of my brother and sister." With that, Juefeng pushed Nini out of the cement pipe. "By the way, Cheese." Before Nini left, she suddenly turned around, but her eyes didn't look at Cheese's face. "Are you free this weekend? I mean tonight." "What's wrong?" Cheese was stunned and asked confusedly. Nini took out a ticket from her pocket, blinking her eyes. "Let's go to the concert. This is the ticket my dad gave me. The one in the gymnasium." Cheese looked at the entrance ticket that Nini gave him and scratched his head. "How did your father get the entrance ticket to the human world?" Nini said, "My dad runs a website. I heard him murmur something like, 'It seems that all the haters are invited.' Anyway, I don't understand. But you know, my dad doesn't like to go out, so he gave it to me, saying it's up to me to go." Cheese still scratched his head, "But I'm not interested in such things in the human world." But seeing Nini's disappointed face, Cheese immediately changed his mind. "But so many things have happened recently, just go, take it as a change of mood." "But I'm not sure if I can spare time that night, you know, my family." Nini put on a smiling face. "It's okay. I can wait for you to finish your work at home, 8 p.m., at the usual place of the gymnasium. Be there or be square." Cheese nodded, but at this moment, like a dragonfly skimming the water, Nini kissed his face quickly. When he reacted, this little cat demon had nimbly turned over the wall. Cheese stared at the place where Nini disappeared. He felt that this kiss was totally different from the kisses of those big sisters in the Elysium world yesterday. Thump, 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 the sound of heartbeat. Be there or be square. Cheese lay on the ground, not knowing what was going on in his mind, but feeling inexplicably happy. Beside him, Iron Whistle's tail slowly climbed onto his body, gently curling around his neck. Cheese patted it lightly, saying subconsciously, "Iron Whistle, don't play, I'm thinking about something." Iron Whistle released its tail, lowering its head to swallow the raw fish that Cheese hadn't finished feeding. Finally, it lay beside Cheese, narrowing its eyes. Cats and mice seem to be mortal enemies, right? No matter if it was nature or a cartoon called Cat and Mouse, that he often watched when he was a child, it seemed to be the truth. But why didn't he feel that Cheese didn't hate him? On the contrary, every day, he hoped that he could. Nini suddenly felt a slight warmth on her face. Even though she was sensitive as a cat, she almost slipped down from the wall. But after all, she was not a common stray cat, but a cat demon, so she finally landed safely. "Oh, that was close, so close," Nini giggled, taking out the admission ticket in her hand, holding it high with both hands, looking at it with a silly smile. There were only a few days left on Sunday night. "You seem to be very happy." At this moment, a familiar voice sounded to Nini. Nini's pores opened abruptly, looking towards the direction of the voice, exclaiming subconsciously, "Juefeng, it's you." A black shadow flashed by. Juefeng had already arrived in front of Nini. At this moment, Juefeng was different from the one in Nini's impression. His eyes were red, like the color of blood. Why are you here?" Nini subconsciously took a step back. "You haven't answered my question, have you forgotten your manners?" Juefeng sneered, taking another step forward. "Why are you so happy?" This has nothing to do with you." Nini shook her head, but also took a step back, speaking again. "Juefeng, why don't you go to Lord Long's place and turn yourself in? I know that you may have hurt Xiao Jiang in a moment of impulse. If you sincerely apologize, I believe that Xiao Jiang will forgive you when he wakes up." "What does his forgiveness have to do with me?" Juefeng calmly stepped forward again. "I just want you to answer my question. Why are you so happy? Why not tell me? Aren't we good friends?" "Juefeng, you're too close. Didn't you lean on Cheese like this just now?" You. Nini suddenly felt a burst of horror. "Just now you were peeping." Juefeng's body emitted a kind of aura that made her feel scared. She had never seen this kind of situation from Juefeng, as if he had completely changed into a different guy. Juefeng's eyes suddenly became evil. "Nini, do you know? I once thought that you might be the one who understands me the best among us, but why?" Nini felt something was wrong, instinctively retreated. As soon as she retreated, she jumped up and agilely flipped over the wall. "But why, even you betrayed me." Juefeng's face slightly darkened, indifferently said, without any movement, he just waved his hand. A red light shot out from his body and directly wrapped around Nini's leg, pulling her back abruptly. "You tell me why." Juefeng looked at Nini, who fell on the ground and was extremely frightened, squatting down. "Why? Juefeng, what happened to you? You weren't like this before." "What happened to me? I'm very good now." Juefeng suddenly laughed in a low voice. "I've never been so good. Nini, do you know? You're my friend, you should be my friend. Do you know? Good friends shouldn't betray each other." Ding ding. What was that sound? Nini suddenly heard a strange crisp sound. Her consciousness suddenly became confused. She saw Juefeng's hand shaking a strange bell. Her eyes became heavy. So heavy, my ticket. Stand up." Juefeng suddenly snorted, using a commanding tone to Nini, who was on the ground, and at the same time picked up the ticket that Nini just dropped on the ground. Yes, Nini's eyebrows were lowered. Hearing this, she stood up silently and did not move. She looked like a delicate doll. "Tell me, will you be loyal to me? Listen to me unconditionally? Trust me?" "Yes." Nini was expressionless, slowly said. "Nini listens to Juefeng the most. Nini will not betray Juefeng. Ha 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 ha." Chapter 497. In the pet hospital, Grandpa Tortoise, who lived longer than the elders, hid in his turtle shell and rolled out of the office door. In the end, his body was still covered by a pile of clothes. Lord Long, please calm down. I'll go buy something else. Chichi-Kamaya begged for mercy in horror. You're wearing this style. If you don't like it, why did you teleport? Just say it. Long Shiro walked out fiercely with a frosty face, but she heaved a heavy sigh. Forget it. How's Xiaojiang's injury? Chichi-Kamaya stuck his head out from under the clothes. He lost a lot of blood. But thanks to your timely rescue, his life was saved. But there's a strange poison left in his body. I'm afraid he won't wake up in a short time. I also found out that he was poisoned. Long Shirua nodded. But this poison is very strange, I've never seen it before. Chichi-Kamaya sighed. I've lived for so many years, but I've never seen or heard of this poison. I tried to extract this poison by separating it, and found that it's probably a mutation of several different poisons. It doesn't look like Xuefeng's method, Long Shirua suddenly said. Chichi-Kamaya nodded. Xianji, it's not a poison either. Long Shirua bit her fingernail subconsciously. It seems that there's something else. Now that Xiao Jiang hasn't woken up, I'm afraid that only Xuefeng knows the truth, but he's possessed by the devil. Chichi-Kamaya said helplessly. I think he's naturally violent and eccentric, with a strong self-esteem and extreme behavior. I talked with him for a while, and I felt that he's full of resentment towards the world. Using the words of the Western scholars, he's a sociopathic personality. It's just his inner demons. Long Shirua shook her head. Is there any news from the monster sent to find Xuefeng? No. Chichi-Kamaya shook his head. At this time, he suddenly took out a bead from his tortoise shell and said seriously, Sir, can I borrow your Shinryu blood? Long Shirua stared blankly for a moment. I've lost all my demonic power, what do you want my blood for? Chichi-Kamaya shook his head and said, Sir, you are mistaken. Although you are unable to use any demonic power now, your body feels no different from that of an ordinary person. However, the Shinryu was born from this land, and the supreme power of the Shinryu blood would not disappear. This old man would like to borrow a drop of Shinryu's blood from you, my lord, to suppress the evil spirits that I've attracted when I use my heavenly vision and earthly hearing. Long Shirua sighed and said, You haven't used it for long. If you use it again, your vitality will be greatly damaged. Your life, Chichi-Kamaya said indifferently, Sir, you have made an agreement with this country. Although the crustal movement was used as an excuse to fool Xiang Lu that day, it may have been noticed by some people, but they didn't do anything. This time, Xuefeng's abnormal behavior caused a large number of human casualties. This old man is afraid that it will be difficult for you to explain. After all, with your current situation, if you are exposed… Long Shirua pondered for a moment. Finally, she bit her finger and gave Chichi-Kamaya a drop of blood. After the blood fell into the bead in Chichi-Kamaya's hand, it went into it and disappeared. Chichi-Kamaya sat on the ground with his legs crossed. A golden cover appeared around his body, covering him and Long Shirua at the same time. Heavenly vision and earthly hearing. Heavenly vision and earthly hearing were all the past and present. Chichi-Kamaya had used it once to deal with Xiang Lu that day, so he knew that Long Shirua was seriously injured in advance and asked Sun Shaoxing to get the monkey spirit wine that could restore vitality. At this time, light and shadow shot out from the magical bead. One of the light and shadow was Xuefeng's hiding place. Backtrack, I want to know who killed Xiao Jiang. Long Shirua frowned and remembered the hiding place of Xuefeng at this time. Chichi-Kamaya nodded and took a deep breath. His hands slowly reversed the bead in his hand. Nini, a picture flashed by. Long Shirua frowned deeply. Before she had time to think about it, the picture in front of her suddenly disappeared. She couldn't backtrack anymore. At this time, Chichi-Kamaya's face was pale and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The bead fell directly from his hand. Chichi-Kamaya. I can't see what happened before. Chichi-Kamaya fell to the ground. He was pale and weak, There is something that blocks the hearing of heaven and earth. I seem to see the abyss. Chichikamaya's head directly hit the ground and he was motionless. Grandpa Tortoise! Long Shirua couldn't help but panic. She hurriedly shouted the name that she hadn't called for a long time. Unexpectedly, Chichikamaya shrank his neck at this time. Well, Lord Long, you are pressing on my palm. It was commonly known as death. But as long as he was not dead, it was fine. Kelowna's Shinryu laughed awkwardly, but he ordered, Chichikamaya, if there is a next time, I will pull out your turtle shell. I'm not dead, but my vitality has been greatly damaged. Chichikamaya was helped up by Long Shirua. He wrote a few words on the paper and then let it fly out through the gap of the hospital's iron gate. Finally, it was sent to Ghost Baby. There is a strange force protecting Xuefeng from behind. I can't see what happened earlier. Chichikamaya coughed and said, but now that I know where he is, I have ordered Ghost Baby. Cough, cough, next we will wait for the result. Long Shirua sighed and nodded. She supported Chichikamaya to rest, but she felt uncomfortable. This reminded her of the words in front of the shop that day. What the boss said. What about the time? The time to think of a solution, the time to work hard, and even the time that others lose and the effort that others use to help. Yes, I don't deny that no matter who is in trouble, they may be able to find a solution after a period of time. But the time wasted, the effort, why don't Miss Long calculate it? The city was turbulent in the dark because there was another unknown society, the Society of Monsters. But the normal society was peaceful as usual. This city was still crowded. People rushed and rushed, just for survival and the goals in their hearts, such as fame and fortune. Qing Yiran looked out of the window. These days, he had moved to Zhong Luochen's villa. But there were only two of them in such a big place. This man with unimaginable wealth behind him didn't even have a servant at home. This man even had the habit of waking up on time and making breakfast for himself. This man also had the habit of reading by the windowsill in his spare time. He was reading Les Miserables. Qing Yiran found this man was idle most of the time. Qing Yiran went downstairs and passed by Zhong Luochen in the living room. It was dark here. He wanted some light, so he planned to open the curtains. Zhong Luochen suddenly said, Aren't you going to practice today? Zhong Luochen didn't raise his head. Qing Yiran also didn't look at him. After opening the curtains a little, he sat on the sofa and picked up his guitar, saying indifferently, It doesn't matter whether I practice or not, as long as it can make me feel better. Zhong Luochen nodded simply and turned to another page of Les Miserables. Is this book very interesting? I see you have been reading it. Qing Yiran couldn't find a topic to talk about, so he looked at Zhong Luochen and asked casually. Zhong Luochen read very quickly. At this time, he had already finished another page. He turned to another page and said indifferently, Have you read it? Qing Yiran sneered. In the past, I had to run around for a living. Later, I worked hard for my dream. Now that I have been pulled in by you, my life has been turned upside down. Unlike you, who was born with everything and can have this kind of leisure. I don't have everything. Zhong Luochen turned to another page. This story is very interesting, you can also read it. Qing Yiran raised his eyebrows. What is it about? Zhong Luochen said softly, The story of a thief. Qing Yiran simply replied, Oh. Then he stood up and carried his guitar, saying indifferently, I'm a bit bored, I'm going out for a walk. At this time, Zhong Luochen closed the book in his hand and stood up. He stopped Qing Yiran and asked him to wait. Then he went to the drawer and took out a key, throwing it to Qing Yiran. I think you will like it. The key to the car. This was a supercar that Qing Yiran had just driven back from outside yesterday. Supercars were the dream of most men. It had nothing to do with what industry it was, but speed. The sound of the engine, like the roar of a beast, could inexplicably make people feel excited. Of course, it was only limited to the driver. Passers-by would probably only feel that it was very noisy. Of course, people who also appreciated it naturally wouldn't. Qing Yiran found that this was very similar to the music genre he had chosen. In many people's eyes, rock, especially some factions of rock, was equal to noise for people who didn't like it. But anyway, as Zhong Luochen said, he really liked this supercar. Because the feeling of driving was really cool, so his depressed mood seemed to be relieved a lot these days. He seemed to have nothing to worry about, because everything was supported by Zhong Luochen's huge financial resources. And from the previous conversation with the mysterious boss, he also understood one thing: as long as he continued to rely on Zhong Luochen's financial resources, he would soon shut most people up. It seemed that there was really nothing to worry about. The supercar was later parked not far from the place where Qing Yiran lived. He quietly got off the car, putting on a hat with his hair down, putting on a windbreaker and a pair of glasses, and walked out with the guitar on his back. "Boss, a bowl of fish egg noodles." Okay. It was still the same long street full of nightclubs and bars. This was the place where Qing Yiran came to the city the most. And here, he ate the most here. At that time, there was only him and Hong Guan. Every time after staying up late into the night, they would sit down here. 2 people, 2 bottles of beer, and skewers were enough to fill their stomach. He found that he couldn't get used to the food made by Zhong Luochen. Although they were exquisite and even had a taste that could make the taste buds yield. But he still couldn't get used to it. He just couldn't get used to it for no reason. Maybe that place was too quiet. But it was still in the afternoon, the nightclubs and bars on the long street hadn't opened yet. The whole street was quite deserted. Moreover, it wasn't time to eat. Sitting on the opposite table were a few little boys, the kind of students who skipped school early and came out to play. At this time, they were only talking about some problems with games. "Here, the fish egg noodles you ordered. Have I seen you before?" The boss who sent the bowl of noodles frowned at this moment. "Really?" Qing Yiran took a pair of disposable chopsticks and opened them, stirring the sauce in the bowl with the chopsticks, saying, "It's not surprising that you've seen him before. Boss, you set up a stall here every day, so you must have seen more people than me." Perhaps the boss was too idle at this time, seeing that there was someone he could chat with. He pulled out a small stool in front of the table and sat down. "Alas. I like what you said. Uncle, I've seen a lot of people here. Men and women, rich and poor, infatuated and heartless, prostitutes and prostitutes, a lot of them. That's good." Qing Yiran smiled. "It must be very interesting." "Of course." Uncle hummed. "You Danxiang have been selling fish eggs here for so many years, through ups and downs. What strange things haven't I encountered?" "Really?" Qing Yiran ate the noodles, having nothing to do. "How strange." Yu Danxiang patted the table. "Let's not talk about others. Do you know Qing Yiran? Is he very famous?" "Tisk tsk, you look like a musician with this thing on your back, but you actually know who Qing Yiran is?" Yu Danxiang clicked his tongue. "He's the most popular person in the city right now. You really don't know?" "Do you know him?" Qing Yiran laughed. Yu Danxiang said, "I know him, but he doesn't. But let me tell you, this Qing Yiran might be the one who ate the fish balls at my place. Tsk, that guy, before he became famous, I heard that he was just hanging around here." Qing Yiran didn't like the words hanging around. At this time, he quietly ate the noodles and didn't respond. Yu Danxiang suddenly said, "Alas. Have I really seen you somewhere before? You look a bit like..." "Like what?" Qing Yiran frowned. Yu Danxiang leaned forward, stared for a while, and said, "I think I met a guy one night." "Really?" Qing Yiran lowered his head and ate the noodles. Yu Danxiang recalled, "That night I made a fortune. A guy gave me his waiter. Look, it's similar to the one you're carrying. He said it was some booger? Or shell poop. Alas, anyway, I said I didn't want it anymore, I couldn't do it anymore. Guess what? Let me tell you, as soon as that guy left, another weird guy came and said that he bought the Northern Military Force. That guy is also a weird guy. I offered him a low price, but he didn't want it and insisted that I offer him a high price. TSK, I really don't understand the world of the rich. Do you still remember the appearance of the guy who bought it? Qing Yiran suddenly asked. Yu Danxiang stared blankly, frowned and thought for a while and said, I think so. What did he look like? That's strange. Uncle's memory isn't for show. I can't remember? I'm full. Qing Yiran suddenly dropped the chopsticks and wrote a number on the bill. Boss, if you meet the guy who bought the best next time, call me. I'll let you make another fortune. That's easy. Yu Danxiang happily flicked the 10 yuan bill with the phone number, but the customer had already stood up and left. He suddenly paused, patted his head and said, F***ck wait, did you ask me about this before? Before? At this time, a passerby suddenly exclaimed, Isn't that Qing Yiran? It's really Qing Yiran. Seeing several people suddenly chasing after that guy, Yu Danxiang patted his head again, feeling that he might have missed one. F***ck. If I knew it was a big star, I would have charged 20 yuan a bowl. Chapter 498. The girl was eating the fried chicken with relish. Looking at the girl with a row of pierced ears and purple hair who was eating happily, Qing Yiran had a helpless expression. This girl was really a person who would do whatever she thought of. At 3:30 in the morning, she said that she wanted to eat fried chicken, so she pulled him up and drove to a place more than 20 kilometers away in the dark. Don't look so bitter. At most, I'll feed you a bite. Xiao Meng handed the half-eaten drumstick in her hand to Qing Yiran. Stop fooling around, I'm driving. Qing Yiran shouted helplessly. Xiao Meng laughed and threw the drumstick into the paper tube. Then, she suddenly unfastened the seat belt on the passenger seat. Qing Yiran was shocked. Before he could ask the girl what she wanted to do, she had already opened the sunroof of the car and half of her body went up. Stop fooling around. It's dangerous. Xiao Meng stretched out her hand and gently pressed it on Qing Yiran's lips, indicating for him to stop arguing. I'm flying. Xiao Meng faced the wind and opened her hands. The cold wind at night made her face pale, but her ears were red. However, she said excitedly, Did you see that? I'm flying. It's too dangerous. Come down. Qing Yiran said loudly. Qing Yiran. I like you. What? It was too sudden. He was shocked. His consciousness seemed to have been pulled away. It was like a dream. The time on the road in front of him seemed to have stopped. He seemed to be unable to hear anything. However, he saw an unusually dazzling light coming from Xiao Meng's body. But in fact, it was the light of a large truck coming towards him, and the roar of a huge horn. Qing Yiran stepped on the accelerator and twisted the steering wheel. The car and the truck brushed past each other in an extremely dangerous situation. It's too dangerous. Fortunately, I dodged it. Qing Yiran subconsciously let the car stop by the side of the road. His face was pale. The truck had already gone far away and did not stop. Qing Yiran suddenly woke up. Xiao Meng. Xiao Meng. Little dream. At this moment, Xiao Meng had fallen into the passenger seat. She closed her eyes and did not move at all. He was anxious. He did not care about the seatbelt that was still wrapped around him. He wanted to crawl over, but he was suddenly restrained. Xiao Meng. Wow! At this time, the girl in the passenger seat suddenly opened her eyes, bared her fangs and brandished her claws, and laughed loudly, completing a prank. He was extremely angry. He frowned and was about to scold her, but the girl beside him crawled over, held his face with both hands, and kissed him hard on the lips. This kiss was very long as the sky. Bang! On the main road, the expensive supercar seemed to have lost control at this time and suddenly turned to the fire hydrant on the pedestrian walkway. He saw that the young man in the driver's seat had lost consciousness at this time, and his face was full of blood. Ambulance! Call an ambulance! It should be the sound of an ambulance passing by. Perhaps another person was injured or seriously ill. Human beings were fragile creatures. Juefeng retracted his gaze from the cement and looked around coldly. This was a utility room in an underground parking lot, where he was currently hiding. Human beings are really annoying. We should make them disappear, right? Windchaser stepped on a wooden cabinet, raised his fist, and shouted loudly, "What do you think? Am I right?" Yes, it was a very neat response, but there was no strength to respond, even though there were more than a dozen monsters standing under the wooden cabinet. There were big and small monsters. Some originally lived in the city sewers, some came out to buy vegetables and prepare to go home, and some were originally the security guards of this parking lot, and Nini was also here. Be more enthusiastic. We are discussing an important matter. Be more enthusiastic. Juefeng shouted. This is the first important matter of our new Juefeng regiment. Be more enthusiastic. Okay. The room was filled with a ferocious response. The monsters that were gathered in the room turned from empty expressions to excited expressions. Juefeng scratched his head and laughed with satisfaction. Bang! That was the sound of the door being broken open. A figure stood in front of the door, looking at everything here. It was Ghost Baby. Master Tortoise was right. You are here. Ghost Baby suddenly frowned, looking at the monsters in the room and Juefeng standing on the cabinet. You look more demonic. What did you do to these guys? Not only some strange monsters but also some small monsters, and even a guy that Ghost Baby knew. A monster that was dispatched by Chichikamaya to hunt down Juefeng. Why was he here? In this short period of time, Ghost Baby found that something unusual might have happened to Juefeng. I heard that Chichikamaya is a master of heaven and earth. It seems that he is quite capable to find me so quickly. Juefeng jumped down calmly. He waved his hand, and the monsters in front of him retreated, making a path between him and Ghost Baby. You're controlling them? Ghost Child had already noticed something, and his expression turned serious. Juefeng opened his hand and said, Control? I don't know what you are talking about, but I know that they are my most loyal companions who will only be good to me and listen to me. Unlike you, who will only use your own methods to ask for my help. You are incurable. Ghost Baby snorted and let go of his hand, and a cold light flashed in his palm. Surrender and follow me back to see Lord Long, otherwise, you might not be able to survive this time. No. You can't kill me. Juefeng sneered, and the huge shadow of the blood wolf loomed on his body. Ghost Baby squinted his eyes and waved his finger, and the cold light was faster than before. The cold light flashed across Juefeng's face, and instantly cut his skin. Ghost Baby then said calmly, I said that you are no match for me, even if you are demonized. But before you cause any danger, I will still respect your life. I hope that you can respect your life and follow me back. Juefeng took a step back with a serious expression, and touched the wound on his face. He looked around and suddenly nodded. Okay, I will go back with you, but you have to promise me one thing. Don't play tricks. Ghost Baby's hand shone even more coldly, and he did not relax his strict aura. Then there is nothing to talk about. Partner. Go. Juefeng suddenly waved his hand. Ghost Baby frowned subconsciously when he heard a clank. He felt slightly dizzy, but it quickly disappeared. While he was thinking about where the dizziness came from, more than a dozen monsters in the small storeroom in front of him had already pounced on him. They all looked ferocious, as if they were going to risk their lives. Go away. Ghost Baby was furious, and the cold monster power around him suddenly burst out, and the huge force bounced these monsters away. Juefeng saw that the situation was not good, so he pulled Nini and broke out of the storeroom through the window. Ghost Baby was about to chase after them, but his legs were suddenly held tightly by something. He looked down and saw that it was one of the members of the hunting team that was slapped out earlier. You are crazy, let go. This monster did not stop, and his expression was very abnormal, and his eyes were hollow. I won't let you hurt the leader, you. Ghost Baby's eyes flashed with a trace of killing intent, but after taking a deep breath, the cold light in his hand dimmed down. He had long passed the age of killing. The Elysium bar had become quieter and quieter after all these years of guarding the door. But the monsters here crawled up from the ground and surrounded him. Ghost Baby sighed, and the cold light disappeared. He could only punch and kick these monsters. After a while, the monsters' eyes turned white, and they finally fell in front of Ghost Baby. Sorry, everyone. Although the monsters here were temporarily dealt with, he did not know if they would recover after waking up. More importantly, Ghost Baby knew that this time Juefeng ran away, and it would be more difficult to catch him. He looked around helplessly and saw a leaflet at the bottom of the cabinet. It was a promotional leaflet. Doctor, how is his condition? Why hasn't he woken up yet? Li Zifeng and Qing Yun anxiously looked at Qing Yiran, who was just sent out of the emergency room. Looking at the bandage on his left hand and forehead, they asked at the same time. The car's safety performance is very high. This gentleman is not seriously injured. Just a slight finger fracture, no big deal. The doctor said casually. He hasn't woken up yet because of a slight concussion during the collision. If he wakes up, he will wake up in the evening 1 or 2 days later. A collision at this speed would only result in minor injuries. This gentleman is already very lucky, so the two of you don't have to worry. It would be strange if they did not worry. The competition on Sunday was only a matter of 2 or 3 days. Yen PS1. Thank you to the leader of Braving the Wind, for bowing to the capitalist forces. I am definitely not the only one hidden. PS2. Happy Lantern Festival. I wish you all a happy day, Manuel laughing. Chapter 499. Qing Yiran was soon transferred to a VIP ward. In the evening, Zhong Luochen came to the hospital quietly. The bodyguards hired by Feiyun Entertainment dared not stop him. Qing Yun said beside Zhong Luochen, the doctor said tonight or 1 or 2 days later, not sure. Alas, this guy, why did he learn to race? Why do these stars always like to race? Fortunately, it's not drunk driving, or else it'll be a lot of trouble. I was the one who asked him to drive the car, Zhong Luochen said indifferently. Qing Yun, the golden henchman, patted his own mouth awkwardly, lowering his head and stepping back. The media seems to know, I'll deal with them. Wait, what's that? Zhong Luochen pointed at a bag on the sofa in the ward, the bag that Qing Yiran used to store his guitar. Qing Yun didn't care much, saying casually, Oh, it's Qing Yiran's guitar that never leaves his side. Speaking of which, this guitar is really tough. The front of the car was hit, but it's still intact. It seems this broken thing is more lucky than that sports car. Zhong Luochen said indifferently, You go deal with those reporters. If necessary, find someone to replace him, and try to keep the negative news as low as possible. By the way, don't say he hasn't woken up, just say he needs to rest temporarily. Also, inform Miss Zhang she's also a shareholder, don't hide it. I see, second young master. Qing Yun nodded. I'll do it well, don't worry. Go. Zhong Luochen waved his hand. I'll go back by myself if I have nothing to do. Qing Yun opened the door and left. Zhong Luochen walked around Qing Yiran's bed with his hands clasped behind his back, looking at him up and down. Finally, he sat on the sofa, thinking about something quietly. At this time, the door opened and a nurse came in, saying she wanted to check Qing Yiran's temperature. Anyway, it was necessary for the daily ward rounds. Zhong Luochen didn't say anything, even though he knew that the nurse glanced at him from time to time, but he still looked at that black bag. At this time, Zhong Luochen carried the bag over. His face was calm, and he was neither surprised nor happy. He just took out the guitar inside and carefully observed it. Suddenly he put his hand on the strings. He had once learned the piano and had the ability to perform in a concert hall. The direct descendants of the Zhong family had to be multi-talented. However, he didn't know how to play such a common instrument, so he just casually plucked it a few times. He started to play the guitar and observed the reaction of the nurse in the ward. The nurse was still peeking at him from time to time. However, Zhong Luochen could clearly tell that this attention was not because of the sound of the guitar. This caused Zhong Luochen to frown slightly as he considered something. Could it be that apart from Qing Yiran, to others it was just an ordinary guitar? Or perhaps it was just him who couldn't do it? He remembered that as long as this guitar made a sound, regardless of whether it was a song or not, it always had magical power. Zhong Luochen's fingers continued to casually tease the strings until the nurse finally had nothing else to do and reluctantly left the child. Only then did Zhong Luochen stop. Zhong Luochen suddenly wanted to let the two bodyguards outside the door have a try. However, just as he was about to put this idea into practice, he heard some voices outside the door. Zhong Luochen frowned and walked to the door. He didn't intend to open the door, but just wanted to listen. After he understood the reason of the conversation outside, Zhong Luochen thought for a while, then suddenly opened the door and asked indifferently. Even though he already knew the answer, he still asked, "What happened? Mr. Zhong? Sorry to disturb you," a bodyguard hurriedly said at this time with some panic. Another bodyguard hurriedly said, "This gentleman said that he wanted to go in and have a look. We didn't let him in, so he—" Zhong Luochen then looked at the two bodyguards who were pointing at the man. He was about the same age as Qing Yiran, wearing a work uniform with a strong smell of engine oil. There was a black edge on his fingernails. He was probably a person who had been engaged in mechanical repair for a long time. He also had an anxious look. "Who are you?" Zhong Luochen waved his hand, letting the three people separate. "Hello. My name is Hongguan. I don't intend to do anything. I just want to ask about Iran's situation. Is he okay?" "Iran?" Zhong Luochen suddenly said. "What's your relationship with Qing Yiran?" "I'm his friend," Hongguan said subconsciously, then smiled bitterly. "Once. How did he become like this? Can he wake up?" In the ward, Hongguan looked at the unconscious Qing Yiran, asking Zhong Luochen directly. He didn't know the origin of this noble man, but he remembered the bodyguard called his name, Mr. Zhong. Slight concussion and some external injuries. The doctor said that he's okay and will wake up in 2 days. Zhong Luochen paused, then asked, "You said that you were his friend?" Hongguan couldn't figure out the origin of this man, so he shook his head. "It's a bit complicated, nothing. I just came to see him, as long as he's okay. Mr. Zhong, please don't tell him that I've been here." Zhong Luochen said, "You came to the hospital to see him, but you don't want him to know. Isn't it a waste of your time?" Hongguan touched his head and smiled. "Actually, my wife is also here. She's upstairs. She's about to give birth, and I come to see her every day. I just happened to overhear the nurses at the nurses' station talking about a celebrity who was hospitalized. I just found out. The mechanic's wife lived in the ward upstairs?" Zhong Luochen didn't point it out, but said indifferently, "Since you're here, just stay a little longer. Qing Yiran should want someone to accompany him. I probably can't." Hongguan sighed, then looked at Zhong Luochen. "Mr. Zhong, you are me?" Zhong Luochen smiled. "I'm his colleague." "So?" Hongguan nodded and didn't ask more. Probably not just an ordinary colleague, right? But he was a little embarrassed to stay here, and his eyes couldn't help but look around. Soon he saw the guitar placed on the sofa, and his eyes suddenly became absent-minded. Zhong Luochen was fascinated by his observation, so how could he not notice Hongguan's expression? He picked up the guitar silently, glanced at it, and said, "This is Iran's. He always keeps it with him, and it's more important than anything else." Hongguan nodded. "I know. It seems that you know the story behind this guitar." Zhong Luochen handed the guitar to Hongguan at this time. Maybe it really carried too many memories of Hongguan and Qing Yiran, so Hongguan didn't refuse to take the guitar. Instead, after holding it, His eyes became soft, and his fingers slowly rubbed the engraved words on the guitar. You sit for a while, I'll go to the bathroom, Zhong Luochen suddenly said, and walked directly to the door. But there was a separate bathroom in the ward, right? Hong Guan couldn't figure out the thoughts of this noble, but he didn't pay too much attention. Maybe he just didn't want to get along with him? Hong Guan looked at his greasy work clothes with self-mockery. He also looked at Qing Yiran, pulled a stool and sat by the bed. He didn't even think that they would meet again under such circumstances. Looking at the guy lying on the hospital bed, Hong Guan let out a long sigh. What happened to you? Wake up quickly, your career has just started, don't fall down in this place, okay? But Qing Yiran didn't hear it, right? Hong Guan's expression was complicated, and his fingers subconsciously plucked the strings of the guitar. He was very busy recently, and hadn't touched the instrument for a long time. Zhong Luochen didn't leave after opening the door, but just stood outside the door. He didn't even close the door, but simply made a gesture to the two bodyguards in front of the door to keep quiet. Naturally, the two of them did not understand what this mister wanted to do, but they obeyed his orders and stood straight outside the door, one on the left and one on the right. Zhong Luochen just looked at the slightly open door with his hands behind his back, and closed his eyes, as if he was waiting for something, a sound. What's that sound? One of the bodyguards was suddenly stunned, and then he was intoxicated. Is Mr. Cheng awake? The other bodyguard muttered at this time, but he looked like he was enjoying it. This is his song again, right? It turns out to be so nice. Why didn't I notice it before? Zhong Luochen narrowed his eyes, looking at the two at this moment. Chapter 500. It was almost 12 o'clock in the evening. Even though he had worked as a gold medal henchman for years, his energy was almost drained by today's events. Qing Yiran was admitted to the hospital, dealt with the media, the traffic police, Miss Zhang, and the sudden order from his boss, and so on. However, Qing Yun had to make himself look energetic. In the hospital elevator, Qing Yun opened a bottle of Bailon's chicken essence and drank it in one gulp. Then he patted his cheeks hard. He tidied up his clothes in front of Qing Yiran's ward and pushed the door open energetically. Zhong Luochen was still here. He was resting on the sofa with his eyes closed. He didn't open his eyes until Qing Yun came in. Qing Yun glanced at Qing Yiran, who hadn't woken up yet. He walked to Zhong Luochen and lowered his head. Second master, I've found out the background of this guy called Hong Guan. Let's talk next door, Zhong Luochen suddenly said. The two directly went to another ward next door. Zhong Luochen opened the curtain and looked at the city. Qing Yun said, Hong Guan and Qing Yiran once formed a band. They are very good brothers. Qing Yun said what he knew quickly. Time passed by little. As for Hong Guan's wife's ward, it was opened under the name of Li Zifeng. Qing Yun finally reported everything. Speaking of which, Li Zifeng is really cunning. He didn't tell the company that Qing Yiran had been in prison before. Heroes don't ask about their background, Zhong Luochen said indifferently, but you said this Hong Guan came to blackmail? That's what Li Zifeng said. Qing Yun frowned, but when I interrogated him, I found his expression was a bit abnormal. I'm afraid he's hiding something. But he's an old employee of Heaven's Shadow Entertainment, so I didn't dare to ask him directly. Zhong Luochen suddenly shook his head. I've just met this Hong Guan. He doesn't look like a blackmailer, of course, he just doesn't look like one. Second young master, do you want me to investigate further? Qing Yun narrowed his eyes. Of course, he had other means. He knew that his boss knew everything. He had a strong desire for control that even he himself didn't notice. After Zhong Luochen pondered for a while, he gently nodded. Qing Yun continued, but second young master, if Qing Yiran doesn't wake up these days, you can watch the program on Sunday. Proceed as scheduled. Zhong Luochen said indifferently, the stage is about to be built, and the venue has been rented from the government until the end of the program. If he doesn't wake up for the time being, It doesn't matter if the production team leaves the episode blank. As long as they don't disqualify him, they can come up with a solution themselves. It's fine as long as they do it well. Understood. I'm tired, I'll go back first. Zhong Luochen instructed. If Qing Yiran wakes up, tell me immediately. Alright. Zhong Luochen left the hospital alone, thinking about what he found not long ago. After Hong Guan left, he asked the bodyguards outside to play with the guitar. We can't do it, but Hong Guan can. Zhong Luochen looked back at the lights of the inpatient department building, muttering to himself, why? Is there any meaning? But he didn't think for too long, sitting in his car, taking out his phone. He called his home in the capital. He called Grandpa Luo, the old butler who had been following Grandpa Zhong for decades. Grandpa Luo, it's late, am I bothering you? It's okay, I just saw Grandpa fall asleep. Second young master, what's the matter? Zhong Luochen kept silent for a while, then suddenly said, Grandpa Luo, Qing Yun is not enough, send some people here. I want my own, and don't make it public. Okay, I'll arrange it for you tomorrow. Thank you, Grandpa Luo. It was also a hospital, but the pet hospital was much smaller. Ghost Baby was still waiting behind the door, while the two masters were talking, and he was the best guard. At this time, the pet hospital was brightly lit, and more than a dozen monsters were placed on the chairs in the waiting room. These monsters were sent back by Ghost Baby, who were unconscious when they were sent here. Now they were awake, but they all lowered their heads with empty eyes and didn't say anything. Chichikamaya walked past these monsters with his crutch, and finally came to Long Shirua. The old turtle coughed twice and then said softly, Lord Long, I'm incompetent, I can't see what kind of spell they are under, and I can't solve it for the time being. Long Shirua frowned. Zhuefeng can control these. I'm afraid he can control more. Chichikamaya said, according to Ghost Baby's description, he seemed to have heard a strange bell sound, and then he was absent-minded for a moment. But he wasn't affected at that time. Maybe it's Zhuefeng's way of controlling monsters? But why Ghost Baby wasn't affected? It should be the problem of the level of power. Long Shirua bit her thumbnail, hearing the bell sound. Maybe it means there's a magic tool or some other tools, and this tool obviously has its limits, otherwise Zhuefeng wouldn't escape but directly control Ghost Baby. That's also bad. Chichikamaya said seriously, Master, I'm afraid your current situation. Long Shirua waved her hand and said seriously, I'm more worried about what he will do next, what he wants to do. She looked at a leaflet on the table, which was brought back by Ghost Baby from the place where he found Zhuefeng. It was a leaflet about a large-scale program held in Flourishing Lotus Gymnasium this Sunday. Chichikamaya suddenly sighed. It's a pity that I'm seriously injured and can't continue to use the secret skill, otherwise I won't be so passive. Long Shirua shook her head. Your injury is too serious. Stabilize yourself first, don't think about the secret skill for the time being. If you can't do it, I'll... At this time, a sound of something falling came from one of the wards. Long Shirua and Chichikamaya looked up at the same time. Long Shirua jumped down from the chair, hurriedly saying, It's Xiao Jiang. But when she was about to open the door of the ward, she suddenly stopped. Chichikamaya understood, and walked forward, opened the door and walked in. Long Shirua sighed, and could only hide outside the door. In the ward, Xiao Jiang fell on the floor of the bed, and the infusion tube was wrapped around his body. But he did wake up and heard the sound of footsteps. He looked up and saw Chichikamaya opening the door and coming in. He was stunned for a moment. As a long-lived monster, his family was very popular. When he was young, Xiao Jiang was taken by his father to visit this monster more than once, so he recognized him at a glance. Master Gui, why are you? Xiao Jiang wanted to get up and salute. You're seriously injured, no need to be so polite. Chichikamaya shook his head. Xiao Jiang said, This is Lord Long's? Where's Lord Long, did she save me? Let's not talk about this first. Chichi said seriously. Xiao Jiang, let me ask you, do you remember what happened when you were injured? Who hurt you? It's… Xiao Jiang's face slightly changed, as if he was still frightened. It's Iron Whistle. Iron Whistle did it. Iron Whistle? Who's Iron Whistle? Chichi frowned. Didn't you say it was Xuefeng? Xuefeng, he saved me. Xiao Jiang moved his lips, looking upset. Iron Whistle is Cheese's pet. A weird guy whose origin I don't know. Can you describe it? Chichi glanced at the door of the ward and asked calmly. Xiao Jiang nodded. I'd better draw it, it's clearer. In the quiet night, in an empty construction site near the flourishing Lotus Gymnasium, the club boss was sitting on a cement pipe, stretching out his hand and drawing in front of himself. In front of him, there were several different screens of light, each showing a different picture. Just like the camera in the monitoring room, the camera fixed on the sleeping Qing Yiran, Zhong Luochen, who was driving alone, Qing Yun, who was busy, and all the monsters in the pet hospital. Of course, Ren Xiling, who was sleeping soundly at home, was also shown. With a swipe of the owner's hand, these light screens disappeared with the wind one by one. Luoqiu smiled, lowering his head and making a sound that could be heard by Iron Whistle hidden in the pipe. Iron Whistle didn't know that the owner of the sound that could communicate with him was sitting on top of him. Cheese had gone to sleep at home in the basement, and now it was time for him to eat. He was lowering his head to eat a stray dog that had just been caught. It was too small and did not seem to be enough for him to eat. Iron Whistle blinked his eyes, making cracking sounds. Iron Whistle didn't know why, but he only felt hungry today. He wanted to eat more cheese. How do you feel today? Just when Iron Whistle was in a frenzy, that voice rang in its mind again. In the past few days, this voice often appeared at any time, or even at any occasion. It appeared whenever it wanted. This voice would explain some things to him, but also make him feel more confused. He felt that the more he knew, the more confused he was, but this voice never told him what to do. This voice seemed to just want to chat with him. It was as if it was sleeping to pass the time, and this voice was passing the time from it. Chapter 501. What made Li Zifeng uneasy was that last night, Qing Yun suddenly came to him and had a talk about Hong Guan. It happened so suddenly. Hong Guan's wife and Qing Yiran were both admitted to the same hospital, which was out of Li Zifeng's expectation. Now, he couldn't blame Hong Guan for not keeping his promise. They had signed the agreement. But he also knew that when Hong Guan had signed the contract, it was only his little trick behind the scenes that had split the trust between the two brothers. Originally, if they really trusted each other, how could it have been split so easily? Even though he knew that Hong Guan had only said it in a fit of anger, since the split was successful, then they should just stay away from each other for the rest of their lives. He didn't know whether Qing Yun suspected anything. Li Zifeng didn't sleep well that night, because he didn't know how to deal with the fact that he hid Qing Yiran's criminal record from the company. At dawn, he rushed to the hospital. There were only 2 bodyguards at the door, saying that Qing Yun had left and hadn't come. But Mr. Qing had just woken up, and the doctor was examining him inside. Li Zifeng immediately pushed the door and went in. The doctor seemed to have just finished the examination, and was telling him something carefully before leaving with the nurse. How do you feel? Li Zifeng walked quickly to Qing Yiran's bedside. You really scared me. Why did you suddenly do this? Fortunately, it's not a serious injury. Qing Yiran was still very tired. At this time, he slowly rubbed his forehead without opening his eyes. How did he crash? He couldn't say that he was absent-minded while driving and thought of something. When he reacted, he had already hit the car. I'm fine, but my head is a bit tight. Qing Yiran opened his eyes. The doctor said I'm fine, and I can leave the hospital after resting for a day or 2. Do you want to do a more detailed examination? Li Zifeng suggested. Qing Yiran shook his head. No need, there's a competition on Sunday, and I should attend a rehearsal. Don't worry. I heard that CEO Ching has communicated with the TV station and can let you sit this episode. Just rest well. Li Zifeng shook his head and said, Besides, your fingers are fractured. How are you going to play the guitar on stage? Ching Yiran looked at her bandaged fingers and slightly moved them. It shouldn't be a problem to lower the difficulty of the arrangement. I can think of a solution for the fingering problem. Li Zifeng frowned and said, Are you stupid? The audience is watching a performance. Of course, the more difficult the performance, the better. Who doesn't know how to do simple things? Who cares? You have to show your astonishing strength. Ching Yiran suddenly looked at Li Zifeng and said indifferently, Even if it's a simple song, I have no problem with it. Don't tell me that if you play Happy Birthday on the stage, the audience will still buy it. Li Zifeng's tone was slightly heavy. Ching Yiran tilted her head and ignored him. Li Zifeng frowned and said, My tone was a bit harsh, but it's for your own good. Don't take it to heart. In addition, the company already knows about what happened to you. Company? How did they know? Ching Yiran frowned. He was a little surprised but didn't care too much. Others didn't know that there was a deeper friendship between him and Zhong Luochen. Compared with such friendship, his so-called past criminal record was no longer important. Oh, wasn't it when you were admitted to the hospital? Li Zifeng said casually. The traffic police came and checked your file. Naturally, they knew about it. I want to be quiet. Ching Yiran sighed and pinched her eyebrows. Then you have a good rest. Li Zifeng nodded. He didn't intend to stay for long. He still had other places to go, for example, another ward upstairs. He had to confirm the situation of Hongguan again. Not only because of the problem between the two brothers, but also because of his own financial problems for the company. Seeing Li Zifeng leave in a hurry, Ching Yiran didn't care too much. He moved his body, and then took out the guitar that was put next to him. He carefully looked at it. Seeing that it was not damaged, he sighed again. Ching Yiran held it subconsciously. His fingers became stiff, but he could still make some simple rhythm without his little finger. He thought of the kiss from many years ago in the sports car yesterday. That long kiss in the early morning, and gradually became absent-minded. Ching Yiran, Ching Yiran. Ching Yiran suddenly heard a voice calling his name, waking him up from his absent-mindedness. He found that it was Ching Yun. He didn't know when he came in, but he didn't notice. Was he too absent-minded, however? Ching Yun said unhappily, Boss, your finger is still injured. Can you stop playing with this thing for a while? Look at you, you can't play it well, it's like a noise. Ching Yiran gave a start and stopped subconsciously. He looked at Ching Yun with widened eyes. What did you just say? What did I say? Ching Yun gave a start and then reacted. I said, don't play the guitar since your fingers are injured. It's like a noise. Play it after you recover. What did you say? Say it again? Ching Yiran suddenly asked again. Maybe it was because his appearance was a bit scary, or maybe it was because Zhong Luochen valued him so much. Ching Yun shook his head. Noise. Is there a problem? It's normal that your fingers can't play well. It'll be fine after your fingers recover. It's not a big problem. Ching Yun wasn't affected at all. It seemed that he wasn't affected at all, but Ching Yiran knew that this was still his guitar. But the magic of the guitar didn't work on Ching Yun. How could it be? Ching Yiran? Ching Yiran? What's wrong with you? Are you still feeling unwell somewhere? Do you need me to call a doctor? Ching Yun asked with concern, seeing this guy was absent-minded again. Ching Yiran's face suddenly turned pale. He raised his head and looked at Ching Yun for a while, saying, I don't feel well, I want to sleep. Oh, okay. Ching Yun nodded. You sleep first, I just came to check on you. If you don't have anything else, I'll go back to the company. By the way, Mr. Zhong may come to see you later. Ching Yiran just nodded silently, and quickly lay down. Under the quilt, his hands were shaking. Scared, scared, scared. Seeing Qing Yiran closed his eyes, Qing Yun shrugged, thinking that maybe he didn't wake up after the car accident. He felt that Qing Yiran was being obedient at this moment, but he didn't think much about it. After opening the door of the ward, he saw a bodyguard hurrying back. The bodyguard came to Qing Yun's side, saying in a low voice, "Manager Qing, Li Zifeng just came and went upstairs. I followed him secretly. He went to the ward of Hong Guan's wife. I eavesdropped. He said that he wanted to transfer Hong Guan's wife to another ward, but they were quarreling." Chapter 502. Mr. Hong, the same medical equipment, the same treatment, just a transfer, what's the big deal? As I said, the doctor said the due date is within a month. I don't want to move. Besides, since the conditions are the same, why do I need to transfer? Li Zifeng frowned. He had been talking nicely, but found that this guy was much more stubborn than he thought. He looked around. This was the pantry in the building, so he took a step forward and said in a low voice, "Mr. Hong, have you forgotten the agreement we signed? You have broken the agreement." What agreement did I break? Hong Guan didn't know why he suddenly hated this guy's face. He felt that this was completely different from his polite appearance, but more real. Yes, I went to see him, but he didn't wake up at that time, so he didn't know I came. I didn't break the agreement. Mr. Hong Guan, since the content of the agreement has been clearly written. Li Zifeng's voice was lower. Since you broke it, don't blame me for canceling some of the above content. What do you want to do? Your wife's ward and all the expenses have been paid by me. Li Zifeng sneered and said, "If I stop paying now?" "Oh right, I haven't paid this week's fee yet. This week's fee is probably several times that of a public room. Of course, if you include the medical fee, I guess I'll have to thank you, right?" You! Hong Guan angrily reached out and directly grabbed Li Zifeng's collar. "Despicable!" Li Zifeng waved his hand and slapped it away. While tidying his collar, he said indifferently, "What about me? Mr. Hong, haven't you always accepted it, and you don't keep your words? I still remember clearly what you said to me back then. Do you want me to give you a reminder? Transfer or not? I'll give you an hour to think about it." With that, Li Zifeng casually glanced at Hong Guan and left the pantry. As he walked, he adjusted his mood, making himself look like a gentle and elegant white-collar elite again. "Li Zifeng, what kind of agreement are you talking about?" But when he turned the corner of the corridor, he suddenly heard a voice behind him. "Qing Yun." When he turned around abruptly, he saw Qing Yun leaning against the wall, looking at his hands with a faint smile. Director Cheng." Li Zifeng panicked. "Are you here?" Qing Yun suddenly revealed an evil smile and walked forward. "Let me ask you, is there any agreement that the company doesn't know about?" "CEO Qing, Li Zifeng suddenly felt a chill in his body. His body's reaction was cold sweat. "Lord Long, there shouldn't be any problems," Chichi Kamaya said as he looked at Long Shirua in front of the mirror. This was a simple and practical way to temporarily solve the problem of Long Shirua not being able to show up. With the help of Chichi Kamaya's illusion, she would look like an adult again. Of course, it was only the appearance. If the monster's power was greater than Chichi Kamaya's, it could be seen through. But in this city, the monster's power that was greater than Chichi Kamaya's could be counted with 3 fingers. Although it was just a self-deception, Long Shirua nodded with satisfaction. "Chichi Kamaya, let's go. When father was still alive, it was all so hard like this, wasn't it?" Cheese suddenly thought of such a question. His body and mind seemed to have overdrawn all the energy. When he relaxed, a feeling of tiredness arose spontaneously. But when he saw his brothers and sisters hugging each other and sleeping peacefully on the same bed, he felt that it was all worth it. He could understand how difficult it was for Shu Yu to take care of this family when she was still alive. Unlike Shu Yu, he did not have a job in the human world. All he did was go out to look for food. His current workload was less than 1/3 of Shu Yu's when he was alive. Putting away this feeling, Cheese went out quietly while Shu Xiaoshu was taking a nap. He always felt that it was not good to let Iron Whistle catch stray cats, dogs, or city rats outside as food. Originally, as a rat monster, he instinctively felt uncomfortable when he saw Iron Whistle swallow a rat, but Iron Whistle seemed to feel something. Since the first time he swallowed a rat, he had never eaten the same food in front of Cheese again. However, it was not always a good thing to have stray cats and dogs. Therefore, he had been preparing raw fish or fresh meat for Iron Whistle. Anyway, Iron Whistle didn't feel that he didn't like it and had been eating it all the time. After confirming that Shu Xiaoshu wouldn't wake up so soon, Cheese quietly carried a bucket of live fish to the place where Iron Whistle was hiding. Did Iron Whistle eat more recently? He didn't know whether this bucket was enough or not. While thinking about this problem, Cheese felt that his shoulder was suddenly touched by something. When he turned around, he saw a huge figure appear behind him. A kind of demon power was released. Cheese was startled. When he was about to open his mouth, the figure directly covered his mouth and pressed him to the ground. What the hell happened? Cheese saw clearly that the guy in front of him was wearing a black suit and was very tall. He should be at least 1.9 meters in human form. There was also a scar on his forehead. Perhaps it was very big, but a large part of it was covered by the black sunglasses he was wearing. There was also a silver Bluetooth headset in his ear. He said indifferently, reporting, "This time the target has been successfully controlled. We can besiege the main target." Cheese could only make a whimpering sound. The huge guy who controlled him was so powerful that he couldn't move at all. At the same time, several figures flashed over from all directions, 3 of them. They were dressed almost exactly the same as the brawny man who controlled him, and at the same time, they stood in different directions of the stacked cement pipes, slowly approaching them. Their target was Iron Whistle. But before Cheese was really frightened, another black figure fell from the air and steadily landed on the highest point of the cement pipe. He was dressed differently from these people, but Cheese recognized him. Ghost Baby. Ghost Baby suddenly waved his hand, and the 3 monsters in black clothes turned into the cement pipes from different directions at the same time. Cheese struggled hard, trying to say something, but his eyes suddenly opened, because he heard Iron Whistle's cry. It seemed that he was injured. At this moment, with a bang, the cement pipes suddenly exploded, and a shadow rushed up to the air, and the 3 monsters jumped out at the same time. Iron Whistle spread the wings on his back and stared down from midair. Cheese could see that there was a wound on its forelimb, but Iron Whistle didn't stop. Instead, he crazily swooped down to where Cheese was. "Sure enough, he can fly," Ghost Baby sneered. The cold light in his hand shot out and hit Iron Whistle's abdomen, directly knocking him down from the air. Seeing Iron Whistle fall to the ground, one of the monsters waved his hands instantly. 2 white silk threads were shot out from his hands at the same time. These threads expanded in the air, and instantly turned into 2 large nets, directly covering Iron Whistle, making it incomparably difficult for Iron Whistle to struggle, and the more it struggled, the tighter the net became. "Master Ghost, the target has been successfully caught." Ghost Baby nodded, then looked at Cheese, and signaled the giant who caught Cheese to bring Cheese here. Why? Cheese looked at Ghost Baby in horror. "Why did you do this to him? Why?" "I was just following orders," Ghost Baby said indifferently, but he didn't look at Cheese, but at Iron Whistle who was trapped on the ground, murmuring, "What's this thing? Following orders, who? Is it Master Turtle?" Cheese felt it was incredible. "No, he only follows my orders." Not far away, a woman in a black suit and black-rimmed glasses slowly walked over. She walked to Cheese, took off her glasses, and said indifferently, "I ordered them to do it." Chapter 503. Even so, Cheese still couldn't calm down. Iron Whistle was like a gift from God. It was given to him on his loneliest and most uncomfortable night. It had come after hearing his whistle, and there was something about it that made him feel peaceful. Even though it was so weird, and even terrifying to normal people, Cheese felt safe as long as he stayed beside Iron Whistle. He called it Iron Whistle, the whistle given to him by his father, Shu Yu. Why did you treat it like this? Cheese stared at Long Shiro. He used the stubborn eyes that could move Kelowna and Shinryu as usual. Long Shiro sighed, lowering her head. I was careless, I should have noticed it earlier, when you said you had a pet. Lord Long? Cheese suddenly had a bad feeling. Long Shiro was confirming Cheese's hunch. Your pet, this Iron Whistle, is the real murderer who wanted to kill Xiao Jiang. Cheese was angry. Impossible! Let the facts speak for themselves. Long Shiro shook her head, moving aside. Behind her, accompanied by Chichikamaya, Xiao Jiang walked slowly with her crutches. Xiao Jiang, you woke up. Cheese was happy. Xiao Jiang said seriously, Cheese, what Lord Long said is true. That day, it was Iron Whistle who wanted to kill me. Instead, it was Juefeng who saved me from it. Cheese shook his head subconsciously and took a small step back. Xiao Jiang looked at Cheese, suddenly opening her clothes, showing her chest. You should be able to see it, right? This wound, do you really think that Wind Chaser can make it? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Xiao Jiang smiled bitterly. Cheese, I know how you feel, just like how I felt before I fainted. I don't want to believe that it was Juefeng who saved me. Or, you and we don't want to believe in Juefeng for ourselves, right? No, it's not like this, it shouldn't be like this. Cheese wanted to say something, but Long Shiro didn't want to stay here for too long. Even if this place was empty and few people passed by, it didn't mean no one was here. So she said directly, Ghost baby, take your people and that thing, let's go back. Cheese, Xiao Jiang, go back with me. I'm worried that Juefeng will come back to find you. If there's anything else, go to my hospital first. Ghost baby nodded, motioning the monster man who shot out the white net to take action. The monster man began to shrink the end of the white net, pulling Iron Whistle to his side little by little. But at this moment, something was shot out from Iron Whistle's mouth, hitting the monster man's forehead. It was a finger-long black needle. The needle had just shot into the monster man's forehead, and it had already dyed his forehead black. Poison needle. But when he realized that he was shot by the needle, his body fell to the ground directly before he could even make a sound. Cunning thing. Ghost baby was angry. With cold light shining from her hand, she waved her hand towards Iron Whistle without thinking. But at the same time, Iron Whistle's body suddenly melted, and turned into a pile of sticky and solid gel. Iron Whistle, which had completely changed its appearance, flowed out of the holes in the net easily. Not only did it dodge the ghost baby's attack, it even took the opportunity when all the demons were alarmed by its transformation to dive into the sewer cover nearby through the gap. The ghost baby was brave and didn't think too much about it. He broke the manhole cover and went into the sewers. Long Shiro frowned. The scene of Iron Whistle turning into liquid and the feeling just now was familiar to her. Could it be that this Iron Whistle was the thing at the ceiling point that day she had lost her power, so she couldn't track it, or else she wouldn't have let Iron Whistle escape so easily. As for Chichikamaya, this old turtle wasn't good at fighting, and now he was seriously injured. Although he looked fine, he was just pretending to be strong in front of others. Cheese stood there in a daze, thinking about something. Xiao Jiang could only accompany him silently with a blushing face. Not long after, Ghost Baby came up with a trace of anger and guilt. I'm sorry, Lord Long. I lost track of it. This guy doesn't have any monster aura, and can even hide the heat of his body. His ability to escape and hide is quite terrifying. I don't know what his real body is. Long Shiro suddenly said, Maybe he's not a monster, Ghost Baby said at this time, but I found a place below where many bones were placed. Some of them belonged to small animals, while others belonged to monsters. There were even quite a few skeletons belonging to humans. I couldn't find any complete bones, they were all pieces, as if they had been eaten. Flop. Cheese suddenly knelt down on the ground, as if he had been greatly stimulated, and fainted at once. Seeing this, Long Shirua pondered for a while, and suddenly ordered, "Take Cheese's family to my place." Ghost Baby nodded, and let other monsters deal with Cheese's family. He walked to the fallen monster, and turned over his body. Looking at his lifeless body, a trace of terrifying killing intent flashed in his eyes. After taking care of the panicked Cheese's family, Long Shirua took a last look at this open space. Although this place was destroyed, no one would care about it. After all, most of the things thrown here were construction waste. But she didn't know if it was an illusion, or because she couldn't explain it herself. She felt that there was always someone silently watching this place. In the past, she watched all the living beings, detached from them. But now, were all the living beings, including her, also being watched by someone? "Lord Long, it's windy outside, let's go back," Chichi Kamaya said casually beside her. Long Shirua suddenly mocked herself. How many years have I not heard such words? Afraid of the wind. Chichi Kamaya didn't say anything, but recalled the time when she was very young. She was weak and sickly, like a candle in the wind. No one knew how long she could live. At that time, she wasn't called Lord Long, and her surname wasn't Long, in the same city, at the same time. We knew this was a hospital. In the VIP single ward of the hospital, a bodyguard was playing with his mobile phone attentively, murmuring, F***CK. Why is it King Hassan again? However, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The reason was that he heard footsteps. Mr. Zhong. The bodyguard hid his mobile phone behind his back, standing up stiffly. He raised his head like a soldier on guard, but also swallowed his saliva lightly. "Why are you here alone?" Zhong Luochen asked indifferently. After knowing that Qing Yiran had woken up, he came over. In addition, Cheng Yun said that he wanted to report something to him, but Zhong Luochen didn't go to him immediately, but planned to check on Qing Yiran's condition first. Mr. Qing said he was a bit bored, so he went downstairs for a walk in the park. Another bodyguard is following him. The bodyguard hurriedly said, "I'll stay here and watch." Zhong Luochen suddenly stretched out his hand. The bodyguard had to take his mobile phone and put it in Zhong Luochen's hand. "Mr. Zhong? I promise I won't play games during working hours anymore, But Zhong Luochen didn't say anything, just fiddled with it casually, poking it several times with his fingers. "Is this game a lottery mechanism?" Yes. Zhong Luochen said, "For this kind of lottery, don't go all the way. Maybe a change of pace will have a different effect. Of course, you can change your mood." He finally returned the mobile phone to the bodyguard. "But, it's right not to play games during working hours. I'll go downstairs for a walk, work hard." Seeing Zhong Luochen patted his shoulder and left without even saying a word of reproach, the bodyguard felt a bit inconceivable. This young boss of Manager Cheng was unexpectedly easy to approach? The bodyguard breathed a sigh of relief, subconsciously glancing at the card pool on his mobile phone. But then he suddenly opened his mouth, inhaling a breath of cold air. His expression became inconceivable. 10 consecutive 7/20/30? My God! No wonder he's so rich and powerful at such a young age. He's really a born lucky emperor. Bodyguard. Mr. Bodyguard felt 100,000 points of damage. Qing Yiran was sitting in a pavilion at the corner of the recuperation yard downstairs of the hospital, holding a guitar alone, but not playing it. No one knew what she was thinking, as if she was absent-minded. The bodyguard was standing outside the pavilion, at this time seeing Zhong Luochen come over. He quickly stood up straighter and wanted to greet him. But he saw Zhong Luochen slightly shook his head, indicating him not to make a sound, and quietly walked to Qing Yiran's side. "You just woke up and came downstairs, seems like there's nothing wrong." Qing Yiran's body slightly shook, blankly raised her head. She was suddenly a bit afraid to see this man. even if he was smiling at this time. Yen PS1. I heard tomorrow is the annual Torch Festival, one of them? PS2. So I don't plan to PS congratulate you tomorrow. Chapter 504. You can't deny yourself because of one failure, you need to try many times of failure. Not only Qing Yun. When Qing Yiran realized this, even her legs seemed to be drained of strength. She made an excuse to go downstairs for a walk. The bodyguard didn't suspect anything. In the garden downstairs of the inpatient department, many patients came out to bask in the sun. Qing Yiran walked past them, gently plucking the strings of the guitar, observing their reactions one by one. Disappointment after disappointment, failure after failure, finally turned into fear, a feeling that his palms and the soles of his feet were cold, and his entire body was cold. Fear. What was the song in his heart? What was it? He stayed in the pavilion alone, trying his best to recall the conversation between him and the mysterious boss during their second meeting. You just woke up and went downstairs, it seems that you're fine. It was Zhong Luoqin's voice. How could this person appear in front of her so quickly? Did he know something? Qing Yiran's heart beat wildly. No, I'm just hospitalized because of a car accident. It's normal for him to come to see me. Don't scare yourself. Qing Yiran tried to calm herself down, not directly looking at Zhong Luoqin's eyes, but looking at the courtyard in front, saying indifferently, "It's too quiet upstairs, I'm not used to it, so I came down to have a seat." Really? Zhong Luoqin nodded, also sitting down. He and Qing Yiran were about 2 people's seats away. Zhong Luoqin was silent for a while, then said, "It's Friday. Saturday, Sunday night, can you play?" Qing Yiran frowned. "You want me to play in this condition?" Zhong Luoqin said, "Anyway, you and I both know that it's not a brilliant technique. If there are too many arrangements and you can't play some parts with your fingers, you can arrange some simple ones, such as folk songs. Speaking of which, a good folk song can also move people's hearts, plus the timbre of this guitar, the effect should be better." This man wasn't like Qing Yun, who didn't know anything about music and could be easily fooled. Seeing that Qing Yiran didn't say anything, Zhong Luoqin continued, "Time waits for no one. There are nearly 60,000 viewers for this episode. With the publicity from these 60,000 viewers, it will be very important for your momentum in the future. The outside world already knows that you were hospitalized due to a car accident. If you can still go on stage at this time and conquer these tens of thousands of viewers, you can become a legend." Zhong Luoqin shook his head and said, "Besides, I'm not a wasteful person. In order to prepare for this episode of the show, the company invested a lot of money, although it couldn't be described as a lot. But you should understand that if you don't get anything in return, then your efforts will be worthless." Looking at Qing Yiran's motionless fingers on the guitar, Zhong Luoqin finally smiled and said, "Of course, if it's really difficult for you to play a simple song, I won't force you. Do you have any difficulties?" Qing Yiran sighed, and then started to move his fingers in front of Zhong Luoqin, powerlessly saying, "See, I really can't use my strength. The doctor said I can't move it for at least a month." "A month?" Zhong Luoqin nodded with an indifferent expression, as if thinking about something. "I know, you can rest at ease. The company will take care of the rest. Don't sit here for too long, there are still some reporters outside." Looking at Zhong Luoqin's casual warning, the fear in Qing Yiran's heart didn't dissipate. Instead, it became deeper and deeper. He didn't get to where he was today step by step. He just did it all at once. Without this guitar, he was nothing. He would become nothing again. Qing Yiran's eyes couldn't see anything at this moment, as if they had lost their focus. But Zhong Luoqin suddenly said, "Right, do you want to come with me? Maybe you'll see something interesting." Qing Yiran gave a start. Qing Yiran never doubted Zhong Luoqin's ability, so he wasn't curious about why he followed him to a hospital conference room. What he was curious about was that before he got close to the conference room, he had faintly heard a scream. But Zhong Luochen walked in front of him with his hands clasped behind his back, without the slightest curiosity, as if he had already known this situation. Gradually, Qing Yiran recognized the scream. It sounded like Li Zifeng's. But why did he scream? His doubts were also answered after the door of the conference room was opened. At the corner of the conference room, Li Zifeng leaned against the wall, sweating profusely, with blood at the corner of his mouth, as if he couldn't open his eyelids. In front of Li Zifeng was Qing Yun, whom Qing Yiran was familiar with. Qing Yun took off his suit, rolled up the sleeves of his white shirt, and stuffed his tie into the gap between the buttons of his shirt. His smooth hair was a bit messy due to wax. He was waving his fist continuously, hitting Li Zifeng's abdomen again and again. What happened? Seeing this scene, Qing Yiran was so surprised that he was even more scared. Oh, Mr. Zhong, you're here. Qing Yun stopped. Li Zifeng slid down along the wall slowly, breathing weakly. He raised his head reluctantly and glanced at Qing Yiran and Zhong Luochen, as if he wanted to say something, but it was difficult for him to open his mouth. That was a pleading look. Qing Yun wiped off the sweat on his forehead before picking up the briefcase from the table in the conference room. Mr. Zhong, I've got it. This guy secretly embezzled 2 million yuan from the company, and this agreement. I think you should take a look at it. Qing Yiran subconsciously looked at Li Zifeng's frightened eyes, frowning, taking the document from Qing Yun's hand, and began to read it quickly. He read it quickly, because he had seen such a document before. He even saw the Party A and the Party B in the contract. But today's Party A was different from that day, and the Party B he saw today was also different. This. Qing Yiran suddenly threw this agreement to Li Zifeng and shouted angrily, "What is this?" That document on Li Zifeng's body couldn't compare with Qing Yun's fist, but for him, it was much more terrifying than Qing Yun's fist. Tell me. Qing Yiran even squatted down, pulling Li Zifeng's collar with both hands, and pulled his head up. But Li Zifeng's face was ashen, and he didn't say a word. Qing Yun sneered, "Isn't it simple? This guy came up with a scheme to drive a wedge between you and that Hongguan, and profit from it." Qing Yiran looked up at Qing Yun in astonishment, only to see Qing Yun shrugging. This is a trick that many producers and agents will use. They would think of ways to get the singers, stars, and actors that they had poached and tie them to themselves, making them the only people these artists could trust. Then, they would be able to profit from it. And there are some small problems in our company's system. You also know that Feiyun's predecessor was Heaven's Shadow. Because of the restructuring, some things are still kept. Of course, these are things that will definitely be removed in the future, because we still need to let the company have a peaceful time. But, Qing Yun glanced at Li Zifeng, saying disdainfully, "Some people like to play petty tricks, thinking that they can make a fortune in such a short time. Yiran, the company has signed a contract with you, and it's your salary. But Li Zifeng has always been in charge of it. I guess the 2 million on the contract with your brother Hongguan was dug out from your contract. However, Hongguan should be quite interesting. The agreement that belonged to him said that he could get a few 100,000, but he didn't want it. He just wanted his wife to be hospitalized." Hongguan. Qing Yiran sat down on the ground, and then grabbed Li Zifeng's collar, saying ferociously, why? What? Did you? Li Zifeng pursed his lips, still saying nothing. Qing Yun sneered, "This guy owes a lot of debts, and the finance company is chasing after him. Famous cars, high-end houses, high-end entertainment places, and several girlfriends. His monthly expenses are not small. The salary given by the company is definitely not enough." Li Zifeng. "You bastard!" Qing Yiran was about to punch him in the face. Qing Yun hurriedly grabbed Qing Yiran's arm, cherishing this guy who was about to become a money tree. "Yiran, don't come, just hit me. Do you think you can still use your hand? This kind of person doesn't deserve it." Li Zifeng pushed away Qing Yiran, and crawled to Zhong Luochen, saying in a panic, Mr. Zhong, I beg you, I'll return the 2 million to the company. I'll definitely return it. Please, don't let Manager Cheng report it. I don't want to go to jail, I really don't want to go to jail. I beg you. You bastard, you still want to escape after doing such a thing. Qing Yiran was still angry. Li Zifeng was shocked. He swallowed his saliva and said, That's right. I'm only doing this because I have no other choice. I'm forced by the situation. Why don't you put in a good word for me since I'm the one who discovered you? Qing Yiran was so angry that he laughed. You tricked me and you still want me to plead for you? Don't even think about it. Call the police. Not only did you embezzle the company's money, you also took my share. Why do you still want me to help you? Qing Yiran. If it weren't for me, you would still be a piece of trash in that rubbish nightclub, you. Li Zifeng screamed. You're ungrateful? You still dare to say that? Qing Yiran was about to rush forward, but was held back by Qing Yun. Li Zifeng was forced into a dead end and he said, Ha 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 ha! You're an ungrateful wretch. Did I say anything wrong? I didn't say anything wrong. Why did I split you two with just a few words? Isn't it because of you? Because you're stupid? Because your relationship isn't that good? Because you didn't even consider Hong Guan as a friend? You're just a selfish bastard from head to toe. We're the same kind of people. No one is better than the other. We are the same kind of people. Chapter 505. Li Zifeng was taken away in the end. Without any obstruction, the two bodyguards picked Li Zifeng up and sent him directly to the prosecutor's office. Looking at Li Zifeng's absent-minded face, Qing Yiran remained silent. He was still thinking about his last words. They were too heavy for him to bear. He didn't even know how to face Hong Guan. Even though he knew from Qing Yun that Hong Guan was in the same place as him at this moment. Upstairs and downstairs, Hong Guan was upstairs while he was downstairs. However, he didn't have the courage to climb the short stairs. He didn't have the qualification. Are you sure you don't want to see him? Zhong Luochen suddenly asked Qing Yiran in a low voice. For the time being. Qing Yiran shook his head. He felt that this car accident was the worst thing for him. Everything took a turn for the worse and developed to a point he couldn't imagine. Okay, I'll do as you say. Zhong Luochen didn't intend to force him. I'll arrange for you to change to another hospital, and let Hong Guan stay there. Don't mention Li Zifeng to him for the time being. I'll let Qing Yun arrange it. Facing such a generous boss, Qing Yiran couldn't help saying thank you, even though he knew that Zhong Luochen valued him because he was a customer of that place. But people had 1,000 faces. For example, Li Zifeng and himself. But when it came to Zhong Luochen, how many people could be as calm and unhurried as Zhong Luochen? Hong Guan really came to see me before I woke up? Qing Yiran suddenly asked. Zhong Luochen told him the truth. He should still abide by the agreement he signed with Li Zifeng. Before leaving, he specially told me not to tell you that he came. But now there's no need to hide it. Qing Yiran lowered his head and thought about something. Zhong Luochen suddenly narrowed his eyes. But I found one thing. That is, Hong Guan seems to be able to use this guitar of yours. Qing Yiran suddenly looked up. Are you sure? Zhong Luochen nodded and said, At least from what I've seen, the effect is the same at close range. However, I don't know if it can reach the maximum distance of the guitar. But why can he use it? Aren't you curious? Let me be alone for a while. Don't take too long. Ghost Baby knocked on the door and walked into the office of the pet hospital. He said respectfully, Lord Long, Xu Xiaoshu's family has settled down. According to your instructions, I gave her some medicine to prevent miscarriage, and now she's asleep. Long Shirua looked at the guy in front of her. He was still dressed in a woman's black suit. Cheese had just woken up, Xiao Jiang had a serious expression, and Chichi Kamaya had closed his eyes. Cheese, I hope you can tell me the origin of your pet. According to Ghost Baby, The monster who was poisoned died on the spot without any chance to be rescued. That was the first time that Cheese saw the damage caused by Iron Whistle. I don't know. Cheese shook his head. I just met Iron Whistle by chance. But Iron Whistle has always been very obedient. It must have lost control for some reason. I don't care about the reason. Long Shirua shook her head. What I care about is that it's obviously dangerous. The one who was poisoned to death by it was an elite monster who was almost 300 years old, but it was killed by a poisonous needle, and the pile of remains under the ground. It's conceivable that if this thing is left alive, it's very dangerous for both monsters and humans. It's not picky, do you understand? Cheese lowered his head. Reason told him that Long Shirua was right, but he also understood that if Iron Whistle fell into Long Shirua's hands, it would have no chance to survive. Even if it wasn't Long Shirua, but Ghost Baby, Cheese could feel the killing intent from Ghost Baby. And Juefeng. Long Shirua frowned. These things are connected, and the demonized Juefeng and the crazy Iron Whistle were created at the same time. It's getting more and more troublesome. Cheese suddenly said, Lord Long, if Iron Whistle can be stabilized, can you, before he could finish, he heard Ghost Child's cold snort. Cheese swallowed his words and said, I want to see my mother. Long Shirua waved her hand. Xiao Jiang hurriedly said, Lord Long, I'll go and accompany Cheese. Seeing the two monsters leave, Chichikamaya opened his eyes and said slowly, One trouble after another, why is there so much trouble these days? Long Shirua said, This thing called Iron Whistle. I'm afraid it's intelligent. Chichikamaya looked up. Why do you say that? Long Shirua said, Think about it, there are at least dozens of skeletons under the ground. Even if some of them belong to monsters, the rest are all human beings. But it didn't cause panic in human society. What do you think? Chichikamaya nodded. This weird thing, maybe it's very smart. It's always looking for people with no identity, or people living alone, or even homeless. Even if it suddenly disappeared, it wouldn't be noticed. Also, its strange abilities are not something that any animal that has become a demon possesses. Ghost Baby said indifferently, It doesn't even have a monster aura, or it can perfectly hide its monster aura and avoid my tracking. Long Shirua bit her nails, but at least it can prove that this guy is cautious and won't expose itself easily, just like a mouse. Iron Whistle seems to care about Cheese very much. Chichikamaya said, When Cheese was caught, this thing obviously wanted to save him. Lord Long, maybe we can use this point to lure this thing out. Long Shirua gave a start, frowning. You mean use Cheese as bait? No, it's against my principles. Master, this is an emergency. Chichikamaya said seriously. At this moment, a monster man in a black suit pushed open the door and walked in. Ghost Baby was enough to make him respectful, and then there were Chichikamaya and Long Shirua, who had higher status. He stood straight and said respectfully, Master, we've found Juefeng's whereabouts. Where is he? He's hiding on the rooftop of a building called Yunqin. Long Shirua stood up and ordered, Prepare the car, we'll set off immediately. I want to see him in person. Chichikamaya signaled Ghost Baby and the monster man to go out first. Then he looked at Long Shirua. Lord Long, you can't go. Have you forgotten that Juefeng has something that can control monsters? Long Shirua said seriously, I'm partly responsible for what happened to Juefeng. Since it's my responsibility, I won't escape. Chichikamaya knew it was useless to dissuade her, so he sighed and said helplessly, I know, please let me follow you closely. No, Ghost Baby can follow me. Long Shirua said suddenly, I have another place for you to go. Where? Go to see Xiang Lu. Long Shirua squinted. Ask him something. She whispered something to Chichikamaya. In a dark corner of the city, an arm appeared from the corner. But the owner of the arm was dead. Or, he couldn't be more dead. His body, especially his abdominal cavity, had been hollowed out, and his eyes were fixed at the moment of despair and emptiness. On his body, Iron Whistle lowered its head and devoured his internal organs bit by bit. But even though it was swallowing, it was still conversing with something, that strange voice. You said he felt relieved? Iron Whistle swallowed slowly, and asked confusedly, Those who were eaten by me were quite scared, why did he feel relieved? Is it strange? That voice said slowly, He was abandoned by the city, and lived alone without any purpose, with all kinds of diseases in his body. He didn't have money to buy medicine to cure his diseases, and was tortured by the disease every day. As for those welfare organizations in society, those kind-hearted people, well, there would occasionally be people who would give him some material things, but no one had ever thought of curing his illness. Death for him may be a relief. How can death be a relief? Iron Whistle resumed its original speed. I don't understand, and I won't let myself die. Whoever wants to kill me, I'll kill him. Well, you're right. That voice said softly, All creatures are like this. You think I'm right? Iron Whistle suddenly asked. You're not wrong. That voice was still so quiet, but suddenly said, Well, let's call it a day, someone is here for me. Wait a minute. Iron Whistle raised his head, but didn't get any response. This voice came and went as it pleased. In the club, the boss changed his clothes with the help of Miss Maid, and sat down, chuckling. Mr. Ching, what's the matter this time? Sitting in front of Boss Luo was Ching Yiran with bandages on her head and a pale face. Chapter 506. But even though it was already the third time they met, Ching Yiran still couldn't find out more from the other side, more information that he wanted to know. Even if it was just a small movement, or a habit that could be seen from his character, there was none. He did try to spy on this mysterious merchant through observation, before the third time he came in. But when the boss sat in front of him, Ching Yiran couldn't help but overturn his childish thoughts. He wasn't like Zhong Luochen, who was born in a rich and powerful family. His observation skills were almost unpresentable. If he could see through people, he wouldn't have been played by Li Zifeng. This made Ching Yiran almost swallow back the words he wanted to say, and after the other side said, What's the matter? He had no choice but to urgently say what he wanted to say. As if skipping the step of thinking, Ching Yiran said while being surprised at his honesty, Why can Hong Guan also use this guitar? Ching Yiran felt that what he wanted to ask was, Why can't I play this guitar? But why is it this question? Luoqiu thought for a moment and said, Well, I thought Mr. Cheng would be more interested in his own question. The complexity of the human heart once again makes me sigh. Then, let me ask you, why does Mr. Cheng think that Hong Guan can't use this guitar? This is something I bought. Ching Yiran subconsciously said. Luoqiu calmly said, If the customer bought something in the store, such as a mobile phone? Or some other tool, after going back, others can't use it? This is not the same. Ching Yiran immediately refuted. What's the difference? Luoqiu still asked back. Ching Yiran clenched his fist and said, This is something I bought with my soul. Even if it's like you said, others can use it because of the ability of the product itself, but I, the original owner, can't use it. Is that acceptable? Regarding this question, I believe I have already clearly explained it to you the last time we met, Mr. Cheng. Luoqiu shook his head and said, This time, I do not intend to answer this question. I can only say that the ability of the guitar itself has not disappeared. You can awaken this ability again. Ching Yiran frowned. Awakening again? If he could still be awakened, then this was not the worst-case scenario. So he quickly asked, How can I awaken it? Luoqiu said indifferently, Yes, this is already beyond the scope of a suggestion. If Mr. Cheng wants to know, I'm afraid you can only trade. Of course, other than your soul, I'm afraid there aren't many things that Mr. Cheng can trade. Do you want to buy it? The mystery here seemed to be magnified countless times in Ching Yiran's heart at this moment. His heart was beating fast, and his back was covered with cold sweat. He didn't lose his mind, and he knew he couldn't be impulsive. Facing this shop and its owner with mysterious power, he knew he was insignificant. He knew that violence would not only not solve the problem, but would also lead the problem to a worse direction. He was still too stupid. He was still too young. If he had been able to think clearly the first time and think about it carefully, if he had been able to put forward a proposal that was more in line with his own needs, instead of going crazy after hearing about the guitar's ability, he would not have fallen into such a dilemma. I'll think about it again. Ching Yiran finally retreated under the boss' calmness, because he didn't know if he would fall into the abyss if he took one step forward. Luocha waved his hand, and Ching Yiran disappeared from the club. The servant girl who had just finished brewing the tea and brought it over curiously asked, "Oh, has the guest left? So fast?" "It's a bit fast this time." Luocha took off his mask and smiled, "But since the tea is brewed, don't waste it." Boss Luo picked up a slice of lemon from the small plate and put it into his mouth. It might be too sour, so Luocha slightly narrowed his eyes. He then asked Yu Yi to sit down. "What do you think Xuefeng will choose? Forgive? Or?" The boss waved his hand, and some pictures began to appear in front of the servant girl. Yu Yi straightened her body, facing the picture on the light screen. She used to feel that it was meaningless to pay attention to the guest's affairs. Time was meaningless to her. Later, she accompanied the new boss, and everything seemed to be a bit different. It was the afternoon. In the past, as long as the guest left, this place was as dark as before, even in the afternoon. The old boss would go back to his room, and she would close her eyes, sitting here. The lights were only turned on when the guest came in. But now, the lights were on, and she was not the only one. An afternoon like this, he really wished it could go on forever, forever, forever like this. They called this place Yunshin Building, which was built a long time ago. At that time, there were still a lot of short houses in front of this building, and the view was very good. But now, it was no longer the case. Many buildings taller than this one had appeared. "Let's tear down all the buildings that are taller than us that are in our way." Xuefeng suddenly had such an idea. He was standing on the railing of the rooftop of Yunshin Building, where he could step on air with one step. He opened his hands, and let the wind that passed through the building support his arms. He always liked this because it gave him the feeling of flying. But this was a very silly way of feeling, and many times, he was even ashamed to mention it to others. But there were also some who were not others, but they were all in the past. At this time, the simple iron door on the rooftop was opened, and the rusty bearing made a squeaking sound. Xuefeng silently counted how many footsteps there were. He knew that the people walking up were not his friends. Perhaps they were people who saw him as an enemy. He turned around. Standing on the railing, he was naturally taller, so he looked down. Those below were all old acquaintances. "Master Long, I'm sure you won't be able to resist coming to me," Xuefeng said as he looked around. Long Shirua was accompanied by Ghost Baby and two other male monsters in black suit. The boss said that the bell could only be used on those who were weaker than him. Xuefeng had already verified this. Since the bell didn't have any effect on Ghost Baby, Long Shirua, the Shinryu of Kelowna, didn't even need to consider. But he could still face these big figures of the monster race calmly, so he must have something to rely on. There was an unexpected feeling of excitement, to think that he could look down on the Shinryu of Kelowna so confidently. They all said that he was demonized, but there was nothing wrong with it. A red light flashed through Windchasing Wolf's eyes. He sneered. "When did the seniors of the monster clan become so cautious when dealing with a little monster like me? Are they afraid of me?" Long Shirua stared at Xuefeng's lips, and suddenly waved his hand. "Ghost Baby, you guys go back first." Ghost Baby naturally didn't dare to disobey Long Shirua's order. What a joke! Although he was ordered by Chichikamaya to be the guard, the one he was guarding was indeed the Shinryu of Kelowna. If there was any danger, he didn't know who would be the guard. Ghost Baby didn't think that this would be dangerous to Long Shirua, so he silently led his subordinates to retreat and closed the iron door. What do you want to do? Zhuefeng frowned and asked. Long Shirua took a deep breath, and under Zhuefeng's incredulous gaze, he deeply bowed to Zhuefeng. What do you want to do? Zhuefeng frowned deeper. What do I want to do? Long Shirua raised her head and said softly, I'm apologizing for my distrust of you before. If I didn't have a trace of doubt, you wouldn't be in this situation today. This was Kelowna's totem. Who in Kelowna could accept this Shinryu's bow? Zhuefeng's heart skipped a beat, and his expression couldn't help but become more serious. This wasn't a matter of strength, but a mental pressure. This bow was an attack on a deep-rooted concept of the monster race. Her words divided the two races. Her words were the golden rule of the monster race, but now she was apologizing? Zhuefeng slightly moved his lips. He found that Long Shirua's attitude was completely out of his expectations. Don't play this with me. Chapter 507. Along with the roar, a blood-colored shadow slowly emerged from Zhuefeng's body. He stared at Long Shirua from top to bottom and suddenly laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha! I know. You must have no way to release the control on those monsters, right? Long Shirua did not say anything, only silently looked at Zhuefeng. Zhuefeng coldly snorted, jumped down from the fence, pointed at Long Shirua and laughed. Even the Shinryu of Kelowna is helpless. You have no way. You can't just watch them go on like this. Even if you don't want to, as the Shinryu's mission, you have no choice but to bow down to me. Am I right? You must sincerely apologize. Whatever you say. Long Shirua said indifferently, it's true that I want you to release the control of those monsters. But I also want you to calm down. Your inner demon came suddenly, but it's not impossible to get rid of it. I'm fine now, I don't need to get rid of any inner demon. Zhuefeng's face turned cold. You want me to release the control? What can you give me in exchange? They're all my most precious partners. Xiao Jiang woke up. Long Shirua suddenly said. He described everything that happened that day. Not only did you not hurt him, you also saved him. Zhuefeng was startled, but did not say anything. Long Shirua sighed. I know the real murderer is Iron Whistle. I think Xiao Jiang is ashamed of his misunderstanding of you. Zhuefeng coldly laughed. Is that so? So he can't die. That's a pity. But there is one thing you are wrong about. Yes, I did save him from that monster, but it was not because I wanted to save him. It's because I will be very unhappy if I can't kill the guy who betrayed me. Unexpectedly, this guy's inner demon was so persistent. Long Shirua was trying to figure out Zhuefeng's real state, but at this time, a shadow suddenly appeared from the fence of the building. The shadow jumped over the fence and jumped onto the rooftop. Did he climb all the way up from the outer wall of the building? Cheese? Xiao Jiang? How did you follow me? After landing, she saw Cheese. Xiao Jiang was carried on Cheese's back. Lord Long, I heard those monster uncles mention the name of Qin Yun building. I know this is the place where Zhuefeng has been living. Cheese put Xiao Jiang, so we secretly followed him. Long Shirua said in a low voice, Nonsense. Cheese took a deep breath, looking at Zhuefeng. With this glance, he felt that he was pulled away from Zhuefeng, and became very strange. This kind of strangeness was even greater than the past when he met Zhuefeng. Good, everyone is here. Zhuefeng sneered. I didn't go to find you, but you came to me. Aren't you afraid of death? I just heard what you said, Zhuefeng. Xiao Jiang held Cheese's shoulder and stepped forward. No matter how you blame me, I won't complain. I'm sorry, I didn't believe you at the beginning, but confess this matter to Lord Long first. Zhuefeng squinted his eyes, the red light flashed again, and the killing intent was like a real substance. Xiao Jiang was stared at by the blood-red eyes, trembling all over. He was so scared that he directly fell to the ground, instinctively kicking his legs, trying to hide. Xuefeng sneered. "You're afraid?" "Xuefeng." "Enough," Cheese said anxiously. "You know Xiao Jiang is timid, what's the point of scaring him?" Xuefeng waved his hand. "I don't need to be afraid of my companion. He doesn't deserve it. As for you, Cheese, you don't deserve it either." Cheese said sadly. "I know it's Iron Whistle who made you. It's all my fault. If I didn't bring Iron Whistle that day, so many things wouldn't have happened, and you wouldn't have." "Xuefeng, if you can calm down, if you can let go of those monsters in the hospital, you can do whatever you want to me." "Kneel down," Xuefeng said suddenly. Cheese was stunned. He bit his tongue, then lowered his head and knelt down in front of Xuefeng. "Crawl over here," Xuefeng said expressionlessly. Cheese crawled towards Xuefeng step by step. When he finally reached in front of Xuefeng, Xuefeng raised his foot fiercely and kicked him away. This kick contained real strength. Xuefeng's monster power increased a lot after activating the power of the blood shadow in his body. After being kicked by Xuefeng, Cheese directly vomited blood. "Xuefeng, if you continue to humiliate me, don't blame me." Long Shirua suddenly became furious. Kelowna Shinryu's anger was quite shocking to the demonized Xuefeng. Xuefeng snorted, pointing at Cheese who couldn't get up, and said angrily, "Do you know what I hate most about you?" Cheese raised his head blankly. "It's hypocrisy." Xuefeng's face was ferocious. "It's self-righteousness. It's the attitude of taking everything on yourself, thinking that you can solve everything. Who do you think you are? Do you think you can solve everything as long as you take everything on yourself? Cheese. You think too highly of yourself. No matter if it was in the past or now, you are a hypocrite who thinks that you can help others achieve their goals. You think that you are great." Xuefeng suddenly became agitated. "Ah! How can I meet such a disgusting guy like you? Last time, it was also at this place. You stepped forward to save Xiao Jiang? You stepped forward? Unbelievable! Who do you think you are? The main character of a story? A great person? That monster doesn't look like a good person, and you still want to take the blame for it. Cheese, your universal love really makes me want to vomit." "Xuefeng, I never thought of it that way." Cheese spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. "Humph, what a joke." Xuefeng's eyes were cold. "Do you still remember the competition to decide the leader's position? Do you think I don't know that you were late on purpose? Do you think I don't know that even if you came in the end, you intentionally missed the last shot? Let me? Do I need you to let me? Bullshit. You're good. You've given yourself a good reputation for being humble. You've made Xiao Jiang and Nini think you're kind, and you've made them think I'm a domineering and unreasonable person. All of you call me leader, but in the end, which one of you is truly loyal to me? None. None." Xuefeng suddenly waved his hand, and the blood shadow energy on his body surged out. He slapped the water tank beside him and roared, "None!" The water tank exploded, and a thick mist appeared on the rooftop. Xuefeng calmed down and opened his hands to welcome the mist. "Ah, I should have known, no matter who it is, you've always looked down on me from the bottom of your heart. Kelowna's Shinryu apologizing to me? Unbelievable. But if I didn't prove that I'm not the murderer, would you? Would you look at me? You wouldn't. You would only tell me that it's better to survive in this city. You would only give me this seemingly beautiful but insignificant favor. Ha ha. I, Xuefeng, don't need anyone's pity." Bang! But the water tank suddenly exploded, and Ghost Baby couldn't restrain himself. With a flash of cold light, he directly broke the iron door and rushed out with his subordinate. "Ghost Baby, I told you to back off." Long Shirua frowned. "Master, I'm afraid you'll be in danger." Ghost Baby seemed to be able to say such words. "Humph, is the show over?" Isn't the result already prepared to attack me? Zhuefeng shook his head. But I don't want to play with you now. I have plenty of time. Humph, can you escape this time? Ghost Baby sneered. Zhuefeng wasn't afraid at all. Master Ghost, if you take another step forward, I can't guarantee what will happen to those monsters you brought back last time. For example, if they stab their own hearts with knives for me, that's not good, right? Has the inner devil obliterated your rationality? Ghost Baby's eyes condensed, but his killing intent was concealed. Zhuefeng suddenly laughed evilly and suddenly shouted, "Xiao Jiang! Kill cheese for me!" His shout directly startled all the people standing here, because they all knew that Zhuefeng had the ability to control others. Long Shirua and Ghost Baby looked at Xiao Jiang subconsciously, but Ghost Baby reacted one step earlier. His figure flashed, and he had already stuck close to Xiao Jiang, directly grasping his arm and controlling him. I really didn't. Xiao Jiang panicked and struggled. Ghost Baby gave a start. Long Shirua sighed. We were all fooled. Zhuefeng escaped. What a cunning guy. Ghost Baby helplessly put down Xiao Jiang. Is it because of the inner devil that he became so cunning? Or is it his nature, because of the sophistry just now? But no one answered this question for Ghost Baby. They had to leave here. After Long Shirua got on Ghost Baby's car, she secretly took something out of her ear. 2 small things. These were small props made by Chichikamaya, which could isolate all sound sources, so she couldn't hear anything. As for conversation, it wasn't difficult for Kelowna Shinryu to read lip. But I didn't expect that I could only use this trick to bluff. Long Shirua looked at the scenery outside the car, muttering to herself, a seemingly beautiful but insignificant favor. If she hadn't lost Shinryu's power, Zhuefeng probably wouldn't have been able to stir up trouble like this, right? Chapter 508. This was the bounded domain created by Long Shirua and Su Zijuan. If they didn't tell him the way to enter, he would have to break in from the outside. For example, Xiang Lu, who used this method in the beginning, was trapped here. Chichikamaya was also a monster who had seen the spiritual vein, of course, not only the one under the city. Therefore, he wasn't too shocked when he saw the river full of spiritual energy in front of him. At his age, many things were insignificant. Although the spiritual energy river was good, it couldn't move the old tortoise. But he was still frightened by Xiang Lu's appearance. To be exact, it was Xiang Lu's indescribable eyes. Xiang Lu, what happened to you? Gui Qianyi stood in front of Xiang Lu, carefully observing the chains that wrapped around Xiang Lu's body. Xiang Lu's eyes were filled with hatred. It was reasonable to say that in such a long river of spiritual aura, being cleansed by the pure spiritual aura every day, he should be able to calm his mind. Chichikamaya. Xiang Lu slowly raised his head with a haggard face. Don't worry about me, I'm just trying to force myself to hate. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to your princess. If it wasn't for her in a place like this, I might really have been washed away. As he said this, Xiang Lu suddenly screamed. Chichikamaya could see that Xiang Lu's skin and flesh began to crack, and the fine blood vessels were exposed at the same time. The blood in the blood vessels was flowing rapidly. This tragic situation actually lasted for more than an hour before it stopped. His skin and flesh were once again restored, and his blood vessels were hidden within his body. This was Su Zijuan's curse. Chichikamaya couldn't help but be shocked. He had already understood what Xiang Lu meant by thanks to the princess. After a long while, Xiang Lu gasped for breath, and the hatred in his eyes became more intense. What? This time, Su Zijuan didn't come in person, but sent you, the old tortoise, to come? Princess, what do you want to know from Xiang Lu? Chichikamaya couldn't help but think to himself. At the same time, he also came with Long Shirua's order. However, facing Xiang Lu's situation, Chichikamaya wasn't sure if he could get a satisfactory answer. But he knew how to judge the situation, so he said, Xiang Lu, I know you are using this pain to increase your hatred. But I think you should understand, right? There is no way you can escape from these chains. Therefore, even if you're unwilling and use hatred to resist the baptism of the spiritual energy river, it's ultimately just a drop in the bucket. Gui Qinyi looked at Xiang Lu's expression and said softly, The Reiki River is born with the luck of this land. No one can tell how long it has been for thousands or tens of thousands of years. It was endless, but there was a limit to human power. Even if this hatred can help you resist for a while, you should know that if you rely on this accumulation of hatred, I'm afraid your spirit won't be able to hold on for long. You underestimate me, Chichi Kamaya. Xiang Lu sneered. Chichi Kamaya said indifferently, The hatred will eventually destroy your spirit and the only reason you have left, and you will lose all ability to think. Xiang Lu, are you willing to become a guy who can't even recognize himself? And no matter how crazy and irrational you are still trapped here and still have to bear the pain? What do you want to say? Xiang Lu's face darkened. Chichi Kamaya said slowly, I may be able to help you to relieve the pain inside and outside. Xiang Lu frowned. Why should I believe you? Chichi Kamaya took a deep breath and spat out his precious bead from his mouth. There was too much spiritual energy here. Even if his body was not good, he could easily perform the skills he wanted to perform. Chichi Kamaya threw away the bead, which circled around Xiang Lu before returning to his hand. At this time, there were 3 more halos around Xiang Lu from top to bottom. Chichi Kamaya said indifferently, Look, these 3 halos can isolate you from the environment here, so the spiritual energy won't cleanse you. Meanwhile, they can also suppress the princess's curse on you. Of course, this curse was planted by the princess herself. I won't remove it for you, and I don't have the ability to remove it completely. And this suppression can probably only reduce the pain when it breaks out. But with your tenacity, you should be able to bear the pain after it is reduced. What do you think? Xiang Lu stared at Chichi Kamaya, but at the same time, he clearly felt the isolation of spiritual energy. After a while, he suddenly sneered, Chichi Kamaya, the curse was planted by Suzy Juan, but you want to use it as a favor to me? That's a good plan, isn't it? Chichi Kamaya didn't care. Since you don't want to, I'll take back the halos. Wait a minute. Xiang Lu gritted his teeth, tilting his head. What do you want to ask? But I can tell you, if I don't want to answer, I'd rather continue to hate. Chichi Kamaya said, That day Lord Long was attacked by a weird meatball. That thing was neither a human nor a monster. Where did it come from? You mean Prometheus? Xiang Lu frowned. Prometheus? Chichi Kamaya couldn't help frowning. Xiang Lu shook his head. It's not what you think, it's just the same name. I don't know how the group of people in the club developed the technology to create this new creature, so they created the so-called scientific name. I heard that at first, this technology was developed for the purpose of human regeneration, but then Prometheus was created. Human regeneration, immortality? Chichi Kamaya nodded. I want all the information about this Prometheus. Xiang Lu didn't ask why Chichi Kamaya wanted to know. He didn't want to disclose the information about Prometheus. I don't know the specific technical support. It's something that some scientists in the club develop. At the beginning, it was just a cell. I took one when I came out. Say it clearly, what's the use of this cell? Chichi Kamaya asked. Xiang Lu thought. It said that this cell can swallow all the cells, and then multiply itself. The way to use it is simple, implant it into an individual, and it can become its incubator. When it breaks out of the individual, it will be the first form. In the first form, he still needed to continuously feed it creatures, the more the better, and the more variety of individuals the better. Because it can swallow all kinds of genes for its own use, and absorb them to evolve. Chichi Kamaya couldn't help but look dignified. You mean, this Prometheus can evolve infinitely? Then in the end, won't it be invincible? Xiang Lu sneered. How can it be so easy? I don't know whether it's a natural defect or the problem of the technology. Generally speaking, there may not be one success in creating 1,000 of such individuals. In order to summarize a successful formula, the people in the club have spent more than 20 years and invested countless wealth and manpower. So far, they have only managed to obtain a few individuals that can barely be considered successful. I heard that they have evolved to the end, and they are not completely stable products. Does this thing have any weakness? Chichikamaya asked directly. Xiang Lu said indifferently, there's no direct weakness. If you're strong enough, you can directly blow it into pieces. If you're not strong enough, you can only find the first cell and destroy it. Then, what did you feed the Prometheus in this city? Chichikamaya, you know the answer. Monsters. Gui Qinyi took a deep breath. Let me ask you one more question. Will those monsters have any effect on the Prometheus after we throw them into the food? For example, thoughts. Xiang Lu shrugged. I don't know. I just used the product of the club. What do its side effects have to do with me? Chichikamaya didn't ask more. It seemed that Xiang Lu only knew this. He began to connect the dots of what had happened before and after. That day, Su Zijuan came to ask about Shu Yu. Connecting all the dots, Chichikamaya felt that he had some guesses about Iron Whistle and why it always stayed with cheese. What else do you want to ask? If not, get out of here. I want to have a rest. Xiang Lu snorted. He really needed a good rest. It was rare that he could resist the aura and suppress the pain of the curse at the same time. Chichikamaya nodded. Well, it's time for me to leave. Saying this, Chichikamaya suddenly waved his hand and broke the halos around Xiang Lu. At the moment when the halos were broken, Xiang Lu felt the aura invading him again and the pain of the curse appeared again. Chichikamaya, you lied to me. Did I? Gui Qinyi said slowly. I did help you resist the Reiki's cleansing and lessen the pain of the curse. Yes. But I didn't say how long I would resist it for, right? Chichikamaya covered his ears with his hands and shrank his neck. Stop it. Aren't you afraid of scaring me? Young man, calm down. Chichikamaya, don't let me leave this place, or I'll let you experience the pain of dying. While Xiang Lu was screaming crazily, Gui Qinyi walked out of the Reiki River slowly with his crutch, and Little Turtle Fist gently hammered his shoulder. Are you kidding? If I really reduce the pain of the curse, the princess will stew me when she comes back. Therefore, this monster elder looked back at Xiang Lu with pity and said, Young man. Chapter 509. Prometheus? Long Shirua frowned, continuously engulfing cells, absorbing different keen, unlimited evolution, human regeneration? Did Xiang Lu really say that? Yes. Chichikamaya said seriously. It had been more than 10 minutes since he crawled back to the pet hospital. When he came back, Long Shirua was already back with a gloomy expression. Chichikamaya knew that something bad had happened to her. Humph, these guys are so ambitious. Long Shirua sneered. Our monster race has studied the proposition of life evolution for countless years, but we've only crossed the river by feeling the stones. However, this Prometheus is also troublesome. It seems that there is a part of Shu Yu in Iron Whistle's body. I don't think it's a big mistake. Chichikamaya said seriously. This explains why Iron Whistle cares so much about cheese. However, we can't sense where Iron Whistle is through the monster aura, so it's not easy to catch him. Long Shirua sighed, rubbing her eyebrows, and said tiredly, Now that we know the origin of Iron Whistle, the threat is reduced a lot. But Zhuifeng, he's the one I'm most worried about. Not only does he hate me, he hates everyone too much. Well, it's really tricky. Chichikamaya couldn't think of a feasible solution for the time being. Thinking of Zhuifeng's last question, Long Shirua suddenly said, Chichikamaya, let me ask you, whether I— But before she finished the sentence, the door of the office was opened quickly, and Ghost Baby hurried in. Lord Long, Mr. Tortoise, those monsters outside have returned to normal. Returned to normal? He is indeed back to normal. Kamaya frowned. However, I don't know if he has received Juefeng's order to go into hiding, or if he has really recovered. But why did Juefeng release the control of these monsters? Isn't this his bargaining chip? Long Shirua secretly observed these monsters, who had no idea what was going on. She bit her nails and said, "Are you planning to make them look normal so that they can leave this place?" "Maybe," Kamaya nodded. "If they stay here, Juefeng will lose a lot of helpers." "No." Long Shirua frowned and said, "If that's the case, it's too easy to see through it. It's easy for the inner demon to see through people's hearts, so it won't do such a stupid thing. But he has no reason to give up his most powerful bargaining chip." Kamaya paced, unless these tools are useless here, so he simply gives them up and looks for new tools. But that's not right. Even if he is looking for new tools, he has no reason to give up the bargaining chips here. What was the reason? Is it because... Kamaya suddenly looked at Long Shirua, and Long Shirua was also looking at him at this time, saying seriously, "The number of individuals he can control is limited. I'm afraid this is more likely." Kamaya gasped. Long Shirua smiled bitterly, "But we can't deny the first guess. Juefeng, I didn't know he could be so cunning. He is not an adult yet, but he is already like this. If he grows up completely, I'm afraid he will be much more dangerous than Xiang Lu. Let me confirm the situation of these monsters again." Kamaya proposed. Long Shirua nodded and suddenly said, "Wait, don't let Cheese know about Iron Whistle." Kamaya said seriously, "I know." Long Shirua just closed the office door and laid her head on the table. She rested her head on her hands, lying on the table, showing a rare trace of weakness, silently looking at the desktop calendar on the table. What happened in the past few days made Long Shirua feel like 60 years had passed. She had never felt that time was so long. It's only Friday. His performance this time should be good. He managed to deal with Li Zifeng's matter in one night. Qing Yun could feel that his boss was in a good mood. Qing Yun was also in a good mood as he felt that his status as a gold medal boy had been consolidated again. He walked into the old villa with his head held high and chest out, and saw Zhong Luochen, second young master. "Where is Qing Yiran?" "He is not here now, but he should be back soon," Zhong Luochen said indifferently. Although it was said that he was transferred to another hospital, he actually came back right after leaving the hospital. But he didn't come back to rest after leaving the hospital. Instead, he wandered outside. But since his boss, the second young master, didn't seem to blame him, he didn't say anything. So Qing Yun said, "Li Zifeng has been locked up. After I asked the company to prepare the materials, we will wait for the arraignment and judgment. This guy is a traitor, I'll take good care of him." Zhong Luochen didn't care about this kind of thing, but suddenly asked, "Qing Yun, have you found the person I asked you to inquire about?" Qing Yun gave a start, but reacted immediately. That was when he took over Heaven's Shadow Entertainment. With Zhong Luochen's financial resources, it wasn't difficult for him to develop an entertainment company, but if he directly took over Heaven's Shadow, it would save him a lot of time. After all, Heaven's Shadow already had a very powerful singer, Tu Jaya. Taking over Heaven's Shadow meant taking over Tu Jaya's original contract, but it was a pity that this singer was missing. Naturally, Zhong Luochen wasn't willing to let his resources disappear without a trace. "Sorry, second young master, our people couldn't find her at all," Qing Yun said helplessly. "I've asked my family to check all the entry and exit records, planes, ships, trains, even the sky and the ground, but we couldn't find any records. Even her spending records could not be found for the past few months. It was as if she had evaporated from the face of the earth. Second young master, I suspect that this person is already dead, right? Even if she's dead, there would be traces." Zhong Luochen said calmly. I don't believe we can't find any traces. But without entry and exit records, we can't be sure if she's still in the country. Qing Yun hurriedly said, Second young master, I've contacted some gangsters who specialize in illegal immigration, but there's still no news. If you don't, then keep looking. I'll keep following up. Qing Yun nodded, opening his briefcase. By the way, second young master, we've rediscussed the program on Sunday. On Sunday, we plan to replace Iran with another newcomer in the company. She will be the singer. Here is her information. You can arrange it. Zhong Luochen shook his head. Obviously, he wasn't interested in the newcomer. Then I'll go now. Qing Yun nodded. However, he was also quite happy in his heart. This newbie used as a replacement was not bad-looking, had a good figure, and knew how to please a man. Wait a minute. Unexpectedly, Zhong Luochen suddenly opened his mouth and said, Wait a moment. Stop the matter of this newbie replacement. Let me think. Qing Yun had to restrain his rising desire, stopping respectfully. Help me find someone. Zhong Luochen suddenly said, Hongguan. Hongguan? Qing Yun gave a start, not knowing why Zhong Luochen wanted to find Hongguan. Yes, but I'm not sure if I want to see him. Anyway, I'll see him when I want to see him. Zhong Luochen nodded. But you can't let Qing Yiran know about this go. So, will you see him or not? This young master's mind was getting more and more difficult to guess. But Qing Yun didn't dare to say anything. He hurriedly left the old villa. It became quiet again, and Zhong Luochen started to read Les Miserables again. He read the part where the white-haired Mr. Madeline shouted, I'm Ran Archangel in the court. The part where he said, Ran Archangel. Chapter 5:10. Sometimes, Qing Yiran would wonder if he had really stepped into that place. He suddenly went from one place to another, and then directly returned to the original place after leaving. He always felt that it was a bit too unbelievable, so he couldn't help but feel that he was dreaming. Maybe it was just his spirit that was pulled to that place? Friday, the afternoon of a workday. It was the afternoon of a special day when people in society were the happiest and the happiest in a year. After leaving the club, Qing Yiran strolled alone on the streets of the city. How should I awaken the ability to continue using this guitar? What does the song in his heart refer to? Is it referring to the love for rock? However, he didn't feel that his love for rock had receded. He still hoped that more people could like his music. He asked himself in this aspect, there was no difference from before. Just like this, the evening turned, and it was after dinner time. Qing Yiran still didn't return to Zhong Luochen's place. However, Zhong Luochen gave him a call and asked if he had encountered any problems. His tone didn't seem to care. Maybe he just wanted to know and simply wanted to know. So Qing Yiran didn't know, if he knew that he couldn't use the guitar, what kind of reaction would he have? It was said that this kind of rich young master was always more ruthless than ordinary people, because they needed to be more ruthless in order to go further in the world they were in. Qing Yiran didn't know when he could awaken this ability again. Or he couldn't awaken this ability. He himself wasn't sure, and he was afraid that he couldn't ask Zhong Luochen to give him enough time. If he chose to hide it, probably everyone would choose to do so, right? After all, hiding it meant that he could continue to enjoy the preferential treatment of the company. That kind of treatment that made other newcomers envious. How could he not feel addicted? What the hell? What am I doing? Beep! The sound of a speeding car's horn woke him up. He abruptly turned back to look at the road he had come from. He suddenly didn't know what kind of road he was walking on. At this time, there was the sound of singing not far away, using the cheap sound system. When the sound reached here, it was already the sound of rustling. Someone was singing for a living. There had always been many people who sang on the streets, for various reasons. Qing Yiran never looked down on these street performers because he was once one of them. They always gave him a strange sense of closeness. right? Not too long ago, he seemed to be in the same situation as them. He suddenly smiled. It was meaningless, or perhaps it was just an instinct. He suddenly didn't know whether he was lucky or unlucky. Although the quality of the voice wasn't good, as she listened, Ching Yiran heard a familiar voice. This was Hong Guan's voice. He's here. He's nearby. Uncle, may I ask, do the people who set up the stall come here often? Ah? You mean that young man who plays the guitar and sings? Yes, I've been coming here often recently. This month, I think. At the edge of the square, the uncle who was pushing his bicycle and selling candy figurines replied with a smile. This young man sings quite well. Do you want to buy a candy figurine? It's for the children to play with. Ching Yiran gave a start. He casually picked a candy figurine from the uncle's bicycle, paid the money and walked away without saying anything. His eyes never left the small stall that sold chargers and mobile phone accessories not far away. Hong Guan was playing the guitar and singing at the same time. It's not him who touched me, but me who touched him. After such a long time, your skills still haven't improved. So is your singing. No one cares about you, and the reward is even more pitiful. Almost nothing? Who's listening to your singing? Who's listening to your singing? Haven't you given up? But why are you still so happy? You are singing Blue Lotus. Do you really have no worries? Unconsciously, Ching Yiran had walked in front of Hong Guan. Hong Guan also naturally saw Ching Yiran. His fingers that were sweeping the strings slowly slowed down, and finally stopped at one half of the beat. Yiran, why are you? Hong Guan looked up in astonishment. Can we talk for a while? Ching Yiran sighed. Have you eaten yet? It wasn't a high-class, convenient or quiet place, but sitting on a small bench behind Hong Guan's stall. Hong Guan seemed to be unable to ask the question, but he forced himself to ask. Ching Yiran's eyes were dazzled by the person in front of him. The person who drifted with him to the north, sang with him on the streets of Hohai Bar in Sanlitun of the capital city. He lowered his head and pinched the stick of the candy figurine, turning it slowly with a wry smile. We have become strangers. Hong Guan scratched his head, then raised his head, not knowing how to answer. It's Li Zifeng. Ching Yiran suddenly mentioned this name. Hong Guan gave a start and also mentioned this name. Li Zifeng? Ching Yiran pursed his lips, looking at Hong Guan and whispering, he lied to me and you. The agreement you signed wasn't my idea. I've seen a contract here, and it wasn't yours either. But Ching Yiran stopped here, laughing at himself. But I believed him at that time. I'm sorry. Hong Guan was silent for a while, then patted Ching Yiran's shoulder, suddenly saying with a smile, Xiao should be giving birth in half a month. She has been nagging about why you don't come to see her, saying that you don't recognize her anymore after getting rich. Do you have time to see her? I'm sorry. But Ching Yiran turned his face, his voice was a bit hoarse. I just need to call you, such a simple action, but he took a deep breath and sniffled. But I'm thinking, am I that kind of person? Hong Guan thought for a while and said, when Xiaoming was still around, you often did stupid things. It's been a few years now, but you still do stupid things. Actually, it hasn't changed. You're just a stupid donkey. I'm used to it. Ching Yiran turned around and choked. F***CKU. Hong Guan said, I could have called you, and it was just a small action, but I still did it. Don't you think I'm such a person? Ching Yiran was stunned. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. Ching Yiran sighed and said, Men. Hong Guan nodded and said helplessly, Men. After sitting for a while, Ching Yiran said, Have you thought of a name for the child? Hong Guan shook his head. The weather was a little cold. He rubbed his hands. Is your hand okay? Ching Yiran looked at his fingers and shook his head. Fingers are broken. How can it be healed so quickly? Hong Guan said regretfully, It seems that you can't appear on Sunday. It's a pity. But your company won't blame you, right? Not for the time being, but in the future. Qing Yiran shook his head and said, "It's hard to say in the future. Is it because of the car accident that has a bad impact on your reputation?" Hong Guan asked tentatively. "It's not about the car accident." Qing Yiran shook his head. "It's just that there are a lot of things. It's much more complicated than when we were just squatting on the street." "I see. I really don't know about these big companies." Hong Guan nodded and didn't ask any more. He believed that Qing Yiran should be able to handle the problem by himself at this time. Qing Yiran stood up at this time and stretched his back. Hong Guan looked up and asked, "Are you going back?" "It's getting late. I snuck out, so I have to go back." Qing Yiran nodded. "Be careful then," Hong Guan said with a smile. Qing Yiran turned around and left. After a few steps, he suddenly stopped, but didn't look back. "Oh right, can you not sell power banks and sing at the same time? It doesn't look professional at all, okay?" Hong Guan smiled and said to Qing Yiran's back, "I want to earn money for the milk powder, okay?" Qing Yiran didn't say anything. He just raised his hand, which was the rock and roll hand gesture. He suddenly had a different idea. After returning to the villa, Qing Yiran saw Zhong Luochen making dinner for himself. It was a very simple red wine steak. "Are you eating alone?" Qing Yiran was the first to speak. "There's a share for you, but it depends on whether you have eaten before coming back." Zhong Luochen didn't look back as he focused on frying the steak with a pair of tongs. "You're welcome, I'm not hungry." Qing Yiran shook his head and suddenly said, "Right, I want to discuss something with you." "Say it." Zhong Luochen turned the steak over and his hand gently shook the pan. "On Sunday night, let Hong Guan take my place." "Hong Guan." Zhong Luochen's hand movements slowed down for a moment before quickly moving again. "Why could it be, you feel that you owe him, so you want to compensate him?" "A little," Qing Yiran said indifferently. "Also, when he goes on stage, let him use this guitar." Zhong Luochen turned his head in surprise. "Are you willing?" Qing Yiran said indifferently. "Didn't you say that Hong Guan can also use it? But I'm not sure how big the range is when he uses it. I also want to know this. Since I can't move for the time being due to my hand injury, let's do an experiment. As long as I don't disclose the guitar matter to Hong Guan. And I've always been the one playing, others have been affected, so I want to see what will happen if someone else plays it. Do you have any questions?" "No." Zhong Luochen shook his head. "No. This idea is not bad. It's better for us to dig out the secret of the guitar than to go to the boss and let him take advantage of us." Qing Yiran shrugged his shoulders and casually went upstairs in front of Zhong Luochen. He needed to remain relaxed and calm in front of this man in order to avoid the other's keen sense of touch. "What is the song in my heart? Hong Guan, can you tell me? And I. This is the only thing I can do for you. I know that you have never given up and never left. Yen 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 PS1. Thank you Br. Love friend for yesterday's reward." Chapter 511. Let me participate in the competition on Sunday? Hong Guan had seen this gentleman once, when he was in Qing Yiran's ward. But even so, he was very surprised by his sudden arrival. But what surprised him more was what he just said. Zhong Luochen smiled. "Mr. Hong, you don't want to?" But I. Hong Guan shook his head. "No, how did it become me? Can I?" "Although we don't know how strong you are, this is Yiran's proposal. Our company respects his proposal," Zhong Luochen said. He clearly saw the excitement in Hong Guan's eyes. He knew the meaning of it. If Hong Guan was grateful, Zhong Luochen would be happy to do this favor for Qing Yiran. This was also an investment, wasn't it? But why didn't he tell me this in person this time? Hong Guan was still puzzled. Zhong Luochen suddenly smiled. "If you want to know, you can experience it on the stage tomorrow night. Maybe you will understand." But the time is too tight." Hong Guan still hesitated. "To be honest, I am eager for this opportunity. But I know my own situation. I'm afraid I'll ruin your company's reputation if I go on that kind of stage with my level." You don't need to think about this. Zhong Luochen shook his head. Our company won't lose a lot of money because of such a TV program. Of course, it's normal that you can't adapt to it so suddenly. You can refuse, I won't force you. I don't mean that. Hong Guan shook his head. It's just that the time is too tight, I don't even have time to prepare. About this. Qing Yiran smiled. Qing Yun behind him came forward, saying loudly, as long as Mr. Hong agrees to go on the stage, no matter what you need, we can cooperate with you, fully. Let me think about it. Hong Guan swallowed his saliva. He still felt it was inconceivable. Moreover, to go to such a stage, was it really possible? Flourishing Lotus Gymnasium. Ah ha 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 ha! Ren Xiling was holding her stomach and laughing at Ma Haud. Why does it look like this? Sir Ma, who had a belly built up over the years, was only wearing a white singlet. His face was stained with dirt, and he looked like a construction worker. Faced with Ren Xiling's merciless mockery, Sir Ma naturally roared, "Can you stop laughing? How did you end up like this?" Ma Haud looked up at the sky. Could it be that because he couldn't disobey the orders of his superiors, he couldn't investigate openly in the gymnasium, and because he didn't want to affect the progress of the project and the morale of the workers here, so he disguised himself as a brick mover and had been moving bricks here for a few days? Seeing that Ma Haud didn't speak, Ren Xiling clapped her hands. Oh, I know. Is it because you can't disobey the orders of your superiors, so you can't investigate in public in the gymnasium? Is it because you don't want to affect the progress of this project and the morale of the workers here? Is that why you disguised yourself as a brick carrier and have been doing this for several days? Ma Haud frowned. How do you know there's a powerful force behind this? Ren Xiling raised her nose. Tut. I know it even if I think with my knees. You said there was a murder here, but there was no report and no police were nearby, and the project started again. Who would believe that there's nothing fishy behind this? Alas! Ma Haud shook his head helplessly. This woman's intuition was quite accurate, so, do you have any news? Ren Xiling stopped and shook her head. Not at all. I just heard that a few tramps suddenly disappeared recently. I don't know if it has anything to do with the case where the tramps were dismembered last time. A few tramps disappeared? Ma Haud calmed down. Why do you even hook up with tramps? F***CKU. How can you talk like that? Ren Xiling poked Sir Ma's shoulder like an auntie. Tramps are the ones who know the most in the city, okay? Ma Haud rubbed his eyebrows and shook his head. No, I can't. I can't stay here. Not only can I not find any clues, but the foreman here is also a devil, working 16 hours a day. It's simply too much. I have to go back, I have to go back. Do you want me to give you a ride? Ren Xiling asked kindly. How much? Am I the kind of person who will charge you just to give you a ride? Am I that kind of person? Ren Xiling frowned and said sadly, Old Ma, how can you look at me like that? So how much do you charge? If it's expensive, I'll take the bus. How about 100? Ren Xiling licked her lips and then looked behind Ma Haud, asking curiously, What's that? Ma Haud also turned around and looked, then said casually, Fireworks, rich people use it to burn money. It seems to be for the program tomorrow night. Fireworks? Ren Xiling was stunned and muttered, So many? What if it explodes? Did you inform the fire department? I heard there will be a lot of people tomorrow, 60 or 70,000. Don't jinx it. Ma Haud knocked Ren Xiling's head hard. Go and drive. Ren Xiling stuck out her tongue and pulled down her eyelids with her fingers, making a face. Sir Ma was more assured with an experienced driver driving. He was so tired that he fell asleep as soon as he got in the car. Ren Xiling violated the traffic rules and picked up the phone to make a call, saying softly, Son, wait. Don't hang up. Don't hang up. What's the matter? Luocchio's voice sounded calmly. Are you free tomorrow night? Ren Xiling asked casually. So, what's the matter? Luocchio still asked the same question. Isn't there a program in the gymnasium tomorrow night? I have a few extra tickets, why don't you take Yi with you? Ren Xiling squinted. I saw a lot of fireworks here. It's a pity not to watch. Just watch the performance. Luoqiu asked with a dubious voice. Ren Xiling smiled and said coldly, Boy, do you want to propose to Yi tomorrow? It's very romantic to propose to her with fireworks. Let me tell you, I went shopping with Lizzie a few days ago. Hello? Beep 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 beep. F***CK. You hung up on me again. Ren Xiling was so angry that she shouted at the phone, Do you want to die? I'll teach you a lesson tonight. Don't even think about sleeping. If I don't get angry, you won't know my dignity as the hostess of the house. Woo. Wah! The female driver forgot the steering wheel at this time. When she realized it was coming, she suddenly turned around and the car drifted directly around the corner. That was so close. She almost hit the car. Subeditor Ren patted her chest with lingering fear and looked at Ma Howd subconsciously. She saw Sir Ma's head was stuck on the window, motionless and rolling his eyes. Old Ma! Old Ma! Don't scare me! Old Ma! Master, what's the matter with Miss Ren? Luoqiu, who just hung up the phone, suddenly looked at Yi. Propose? Luoqiu finally shook his head and said, Nothing, just a few words. Miss Maid smiled. Luoqiu stood up and said, I'll go out and see if Iron Whistle has any new growth today. Prometheus, this creature's growth rate is really fast. Chapter 5:12. Why did he find Iron Whistle interesting? Because in addition to being a new life form, it also had a super high growth ability. Not in terms of its physical ability and development, of course, its growth was also very fast, but in terms of its thinking. It took 20 or 30 years for human beings to have a complete worldview from birth, while ordinary animals might not have it in their whole life. As for becoming a monster, it was a matter of time and favorable conditions. Luoqiu began to explore the growth of Iron Whistle, and had new surprises almost every day. It had been following its instinct, even after learning to think, it still followed its instinct. Luoqiu didn't try to guide Iron Whistle's thinking with the viewpoint of the outside world. He would not tell Iron Whistle everything he wanted to know. For example, if a mathematician gave a basic equation, what kind of theoretical system could the person who got it develop from this basic equation? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Iron Whistle had been used to this kind of sudden sound, so it was calm. It didn't even intend to open its eyes, but just turned its body. It was wrapped in a thin blanket. There was a lot of intoxicating smell on the blanket, the smell of cheese. In addition to cheese, there were several different smells that could also arouse its appetite. This was a bed in a small room in the basement. To be exact, this was the room where Cheese and his family lived. After Shu Xiaoshu and her child were taken away by Long Shirua, it was empty for 2 days. To kill time. Iron Whistle gave a lazy answer to the voice. Luoqiu felt this answer was very appropriate, wasn't it? Iron Whistle was wrapped in a blanket, and its limbs were casually placed on the bed. Although its heavy body had bent the bed, it still looked like a house cat lying in a basket after a full meal. Because you're full? No, I'm hungrier. I recently found that I can't eat enough, no matter how much I eat. Is this the desire you mentioned? Appetite is indeed a type of desire. Iron Whistle was silent for a while and suddenly asked, But why is it that I am not willing to move even though I am very hungry? I know very well that I want to eat cheese, but I don't know why, staying in this place, I can endure this kind of, you said pain? Here. Luoqiu sounded a little surprised. Crack. Iron Whistle opened his eyes. His chameleon-like eyes rolled a few times. Suddenly, he said, It's a very strange feeling. I know it's not good for me, but I don't want to leave. But I know I won't stay here any longer. Why? Because it's not good for me. Iron Whistle gave an answer that was closest to the nature of a living creature. Of course, I can't keep things that are not good for me. Have you ever thought that to other entities, you might be a bad thing, and they might not let you stay? Iron Whistle was obviously stunned and gave such an answer. Isn't this a very normal thing? I have to survive, and so do other creatures. They are weaker than me, so they can only let me eat them. If I am weaker than them, I will be eaten. In other words, if other entities have the ability to kill you, you won't feel angry or hate. Hate? Anger? Iron Whistle thought for a while and shook his head. I don't know. But, are you hesitating? Iron Whistle shook his head. I don't know. But now I suddenly think that if I can't stay, who can kill me? I don't want it to be cheese. Why? Why wouldn't it be cheese? That feeling will be very painful. I know that the thing in my body has been stopping me. No, I can't stay here anymore. Iron Whistle suddenly climbed down from the bed. The tail behind him suddenly attacked and directly hit the big bed, breaking it into 2 pieces. It suddenly let out a hissing sound and quickly crawled out of the basement. Boss Luo showed his body in the air. He glanced at the broken bed and waved his hand to restore it to its original state. Luoqiu raised his head and looked at the things pasted on the wall. In the past, many families would have something like that. That is, the certificates that the children received from school. Parents always liked to stick them on the wall in a conspicuous place. No one knew who made the rule that it must be like this. Saturday, Sunday afternoon, sunny turned cloudy. Under the operation of a huge amount of capital, a huge and gorgeous stage was built before the broadcast of the show, and it was even completed half a day in advance. As a result, the participating singers had more time to prepare, which led to the current rehearsal. Hong Guan didn't even know if he could handle a recording studio in a TV station, let alone a huge performance venue like this one in a gymnasium. How could he control this level of competition with his experience in the nightclub? Looking at one of the veteran singers who was rehearsing on the stage, Hong Guan couldn't help breaking out in cold sweat. Wasn't it too hasty to agree to Mr. Zhong's participation? But thinking of the way his wife looked at him when he mentioned this to her in the hospital, Hong Guan braced himself and came. Mr. Hong, Mr. Hong. Qing Yun called Hong Guan's name from afar, and then walked quickly to him. Why haven't you come on the stage? Isn't it your turn? Is there any problem? Just tell me. Hong Guan thanked him for his kindness, but smiled bitterly. I'm still nervous. Then why did you come? Qing Yun didn't show it but said, Mr. Hong, let me tell you a piece of good news. I've found the thing you asked me to find. I'll send it to you on time tomorrow. Hong Guan was surprised. In such a short time, Qing Yun said proudly, Mr. Hong, don't underestimate the strength of our Feiyun entertainment. This is just a small matter. By the way, do you have any other requests? I'll try my best to cooperate with you. Hong Guan took a deep breath, shaking his head. No. I'd better go to rehearse. I have to pass this stage. Under the watchful eyes of the veteran singers who had yet to leave, as well as the agents of several other contestants, Hong Guan walked stiffly onto the gorgeous stage. It was amazing. Less than a day ago, he was still selling power banks and singing in the square. Iran, do you want me to tell you something here? Facing the empty gymnasium, Hong Guan suddenly had such an idea. Another one came to the stage. Looking at the guy on the stage below, Wind-Chasing Wolf suddenly sneered. Go ahead, you won't be able to dance for long anyway. At this time, Wind-Chasing Wolf was standing on the roof of the gymnasium, overlooking the city. Not long after, a figure climbed to the roof behind Zhuifeng, and then walked to the front of Zhuifeng cautiously. It was not a monster, but a human wearing the staff uniform below. Well, a senior staff. Zhuifeng, I've done it for you. At this moment, the human quickly said, the things were swapped out before they were shipped over. They didn't even realize it and immediately started installing it. The wind was very strong. The human stood there with his clothes fluttering. Windchaser's expressionless face suddenly showed a smile. It's been hard on you. What are you talking about? We are good friends. It's just a small matter. Why don't I help you? The human laughed happily. Yes, we are good friends. Juefeng narrowed his eyes. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's special performance.